CI was really good about building on every square inch of ground out here to sell homes. They didn't give us really much places to put really anything. So the original plan that we had done, we tried to put it down there on the easement off of Passaro. We went to the board, to the city of Venice. It was denied because it was basically what they said. It was incompatible with the neighborhood. You're right up against neighborhood houses. They suggested that it be located in the recreational area. So that's what we looked at. The original plan, we tried to get 4. We looked at the plan right up here. It's on the, let me get the, okay, let me go back to my notes. It'll be easier. The city of Venice requires us to hold this public workshop as a part of the process. It does have to go back before the city planning commission and the city commission. But the first step is to have this public workshop at the CDD. We are required to send out a letter to anyone that lives within 250 feet of the property where the amenity is going to be added. So it's not 250 feet from the pickleball, it's 250 feet from anywhere the parcel will touch. I don't know if the people can see that, but there's a ring around. This is the 250-foot ring, and the proposed site is right down here.
And for the record, those cards were sent out.
The cards were sent out, and we actually got a few back in the mail, so we know they were all sent, and it was publicly advertised in the Sarasota Herald Tribune on August 25th. What I wanted to point out is the location where we're looking at. The closest the condo is 88 feet away, which is comparable to where the tennis is. The condo up, that one is 167 feet away. The third one up, it's 250 feet away. The closest building on Bella Vista, the closest building on the Portofino is 203, and the closest single family home on Porcello Court is 427 feet away. So that just gives you a rough idea of the proximity to the residential. The city also requires us to look at the maps. We're in Zone X of the FEMA map, so we're not in the flood zone. The site is located in the previously approved plan unit development, and the future land use of the area is mixed use residential. One of the other things we're looking to do out here the River Club needs some storage. So we're looking to add a storage bin right outside here. It's right down here, right south of the building. So that's in addition to the pickleball, we're looking to add that right down there as well. So when we're looking at the pickleball, we had the site surveyed. We show the trees. We show all the everything that's out there. We got it on the survey. Our goal was to maintain as much of the vegetation as we possibly could. So there will be a few trees that will have to be relocated, but for the most of the vegetation, we're going to be able to keep that where it is. And for any tree that was required by the development, we have to replace. But in addition to that, with any new amenity, the city will require vegetation as well. So we're going to keep as much as we could. We're going to supplement and we're going to add. There is an existing storm water inlet, and we're going to leave that. It's right in between the two courts right here. So we're going to be able to work that. We'll just have to adjust the grade. So we're going to utilize that for drainage. There's no issues with the drainage. And we're going to have sidewalks. There's 2 curb cuts right now as you come in. We're going to take those out, and we're just going to have a continuous sidewalk then that'll connect to the sidewalk along Bella Vista.
Wait, excuse me, I didn't. No, I'm sorry. We're not open for public comment yet, ma'am. Please don't speak out. Let's let him give his presentation and then we'll open up for comment.
That wasn't comment, that was question.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I would like to point to stuff here, but yeah, we're closing off the 2 entrances and we're building a sidewalk that's going to just tie right around and continue with the sidewalk up along Bella Vista. The committee is concerned with the sound, obviously, and so what they've gone through, they've looked at, and they've checked the internet, they've checked around, and they have come up with the Acoustic Defense. This is a sound device that is supposed to reduce the decibels by 50%. It's going to go along the north side, so between the pickleball and the tennis. It's going to go up through here. It's going to go along the west side to help the sound to go out to Bella Vista. And I've got the literature on the on that fence that I could share with others. It's kind of hard to see from so far, but it's a fence that they hang on the fence. It's a pad that they hang on the fence, and that's what absorbs the sound, similar to the panels that you see in here that help to absorb the sound. So that's kind of what they hang on the fence.
Thank you so much. I can see it in first out there. And to this.
Okay, we had a CDD meeting. It's been quite a while now, but we actually paused the meeting from here. We went outside to that exact location where we're planning this. And we had a makeshift pickleball court set up. And I used the decibel reader to verify how loud pickleball was. The sounds coming from the ball hitting the racket, it was 55 decibels. So in comparison, I walked over, and that's standing right next to them. I was probably within about 5 to 8 feet. Then I walked over to the edge of the tennis court to record that. The readings from the ball, the tennis ball hitting the racket was 65. So it's less sound than the tennis. 55 decibels versus 65. And just to give a comparison, the normal conversational speech is 60 decibels. 60 decibels, the normal conversational speech. Just another comparison with that at the public meeting where we had Mr. Parati, who we all love, he was coming in at 80 decibels in the meeting. So the air conditioner is at 60 decibels. The typical dishwasher is at 70 decibels. A vacuum cleaner is at 75. A refrigerator is at 50. So we're just almost right in the same as a refrigerator. This is before the sound barrier and before vegetation. One of the things we can do with the vegetation is we can get very creative with that. One of the neighboring communities, the newest one area, I believe, they put in pickleball and they have a very dense hedge right up between the courts and residential, so much so that you can't even see the courts with that vegetation that they have up there. So we could do similar. Now we have a lot of the vegetation there that's going to stay, and we could supplement it, and we could do something similar to this as well. I could just pass them around if you just kind of want to take a peek and pass it. Yes, since the letters were sent out, we did get a few residents raising some concerns, so I want to try to address those, and it might help some more comments to help to answer them. The one was about the sound. That's the most one that we hear is the sound. So we added the acoustic defense. We're going to add vegetation, and just, I wanted to share the decibel levels just so people could understand how that relates. So the board's really working hard to make this work for everybody. And one of the residents said that the sound study should be performed by a professional acoustical engineer. They use a very similar device as what I got. They get the data, they look at the site, they look at the distances, they do pretty much exactly what I get done. So the board, I don't really feel that they need to spend thousands of dollars for a study that's going to tell you exactly what I'm telling you right now. One of the residents questioned the parking spaces where the proposed pickleball courts are to be located. He said that he thought that the city approval of the PUD had designated those spaces for either the swimming or the tennis. I have the approved plans that the city approved, and there are no designated spots for anything. Like these 3 belong to this, these 4 belong to that. The only requirement is the total numbers. This facility with the recreational amenities required 80 parking spaces. What's out there right now is 135. So there's 55 spaces over and above what the city requirements are based on the square footage, based on the number of the courts, based on the size of the pool. So we have 55 extra places. So yes, we are going to lose some for up there, but we still far exceed the numbers that the city is requiring. Another resident expressed concern if you parked in the south lot walking across the driveway about possibly getting hit. People coming in, I think probably 98% come up and they turn either into the parking lot on the north or the parking lot on the south. They seldom drive straight through to drop off somebody up here unless it's a rainy day or so, or whatever. So most of the people are going to be going very, very slow coming in. So if you parked in the lot on the south, it's easy to walk across. We could always look at that later on. There's an easy place where I could put a crosswalk out there. So if that is a problem later on, we could do something with that. And that's all I had. Unless anybody wants to add anything before we open it up.
Other than the fact that if necessary, we can require special paddles and, I'm sorry, I figure my voice is loud enough. We can require special paddles as well as balls that reduce the sound level. They have it in other communities. Also, we would probably restrict the hours if this is approved for usage.
A lot of the studies that you find online was done. Pickleball is the fastest growing racket sport in the country. It's a natural progression from tennis to pickleball. And because of the concern with the sounds, because a lot of communities were adding these, just like we're trying to do, was the sound. So a lot of the initial studies that were done was with the, basically original wood, the paddles. So now most of the paddles that they make are composite material, which is way better on the sound. So the pickleball committees or whatever, they try to address that as well, because they want it to be fun for everybody as we age. Some of us can't run around the courts as much, so it's a lot easier for pickleball.
Okay.
Rick, I have 2 questions. Does the proposal include lighting now?
We do show lighting in the plan. Yes.
Second question is, what's the height dimension on the sound barrier that you spoke about?
They're 8 foot high. The fence surrounding the court is 8 foot. That Acoustic Defense will go that whole 8 foot.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Good job, Rick.
Did you want me to stay up here, or how do you want to handle the public comment?
Well, I'd like you to stay around as we open up.
Stay, but I
Yeah.
guess-
Well, people will have to use that mic, so.
What do you want to do first, Zoom or in person?
We have 70 participants in Zoom, so I think we should just go through our list of in-person first.
How many?
7 or 70?
70. Okay,
Not 70 speakers.
they have the right meeting?
No, not 70 speakers,
She just said.
not speakers.
No, 70
Okay.
people watching.
Oh. Oh, my heart beats still.
We'll be here.
Okay, so we are going to call upon speakers at this time, registered to speak, having signed in, Tyler Cassell.
Oh, what a surprise.
Okay.
Just as a reminder, Mr. Cassell and audience members, we are limiting comment to 3 minutes per person.
My wife has 3 minutes if she's sitting her time too. Thank you. Thank you. Let me have right at it. First of all, the notice is sent out to people within 250 feet of the site. However, the noise goes about 500 to 600 feet because right here, Acoustical Engineer Company in Phoenix, Arizona says, we recommend that pickleball courts be located within 500 to 600 feet of residential properties be reviewed by acoustical engineer. Why? Because the sound travels that far. Secondly, another quote. Properly measuring the sound from pickleball courts is not a simple matter of setting up a sound level meter, like Mr. Shopkin did, and logging in equivalent sound pressure level. The short duration impulses produced by paddle impacts require a detailed process of applying a metric that can accurately represent the community noise impact of the pickleball courts. Finally, they have a warning. If you're in the process of planning pickleball for your site, consulting an acoustical engineer can reveal unforeseen issues with the selected court site or site plan before you invest tens or thousands of dollars in the site. So, other opinions, again, acoustical engineers. Two, S&W in Phoenix, Arizona, and also William Thornton up in Pennsylvania, who did a study for Punta Gorda, by the way. Here's what he says. Fences, barriers, planting, trees, and walls, like we're talking about putting in here. All of these types of solutions are frequently suggested, though they are not effective for reasons of fundamental physics and will not reduce the noise to acceptable levels. Barrier vendors often use highly misleading information in their marketing materials, like Mr. Shopper had, as testing the barrier materials in according to standards that have no relation to barrier performance, and reporting these unrelated numbers to give the impression that the barriers are more effective than they are. In other words, you're looking at advertising puffery that they put on their materials to sell it to you. Now, again, the company Acoustic Defense. Here's a quote. In the case of Acoustic Defense product, the manufacturer erroneously rates their materials in terms of sound transmission class. So the numbers, the stuff you're saying, don't apply at all. Soft paddles, soft pickleballs fall in the same category. They're overstated as noise cures, and acoustical professionals say they don't cut the noise very much, even though their advertising materials will tell you that they do. So, we really can't dampen the sound there. Again, if you're going to put an 8-foot wall there with some type of material on, you're going to have a sweat box for those people who play pickleball. It's going to be unsightly. It's not going to work. They put a 10-foot wall around the pickleball courts down in Punta Gorda. What happened? No change. The wall and the material on it made no difference. The neighbors still complain. So, decibels, I'm not going to get into that because, well, first of all, let me just tell you the way decibels work. 40 is twice 30. 50 is twice 40. It works, 60 is twice 50. It works like the earthquake scale, the Richter scale. Every 10 points is double. So when you're talking about going from 50 to 60, it's double. Okay? I've actually reached out to William Thornton up in Pennsylvania and talked to him about this. And he is a master mechanical engineer with a PhD. He has a business near Pittsburgh. He's done over 1,500 such evaluations. He was hired by Punta Gorda City Council. He can do a noise model study for us using Google Earth with added pictures and diagrams from us. He doesn't have to come here and do this. He can do this far away. He's had 1,500 other studies to base his information on. The good news, cost, how much? $2,000. A small amount to get a professional opinion on how we should proceed with this whole thing. I have a copy of this information that I'm going to give to Mr. Booker with his information on it and all of his qualifications. And again, I want to say the park with all the pickleball courts essentially makes this whole plan moot. We're going to have them over there. Why spend the $20, $30, $40, $50,000 here to have to duplicate something that's down there? Doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you,
Tyler,
Tyler.
when is this park supposed to be completed? Did they give you, was there a date in the paper?
Nope,
Thank you.
but there's money in there. Take a look at it. Go look at it.
I took a look at it. I'm wondering when it's going to be done. Whose lifetime?
Go tomorrow and ask her at the meeting.
Tyler, I need your material.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Here's all the information.
Thank you.
Darlene? I think my concerns about the pickleball courts are a little bit different than what a lot of these people are talking about, the sound and everything. I understand that we're going to lose 13 parking places, and I also have just learned this morning that a survey has been taken. But how many people in the community are actually interested in playing pickleball? It is upcoming, it is popular, but how many people as residents are truly interested in playing it? I question why we are looking at adding another amenity at an additional cost to an operation that is losing $350,000 a year. And that this does not supply any type of revenue for the residents here at the Venetian. We really need to take a hard look at what we have going on at this River Club. I find it to be a great amenity for us, and I do enjoy coming to the River Club, but I also see that we need to make drastic changes, and I don't believe that a pickleball court or pickleball courts is going to add any added value to the sale of my home. I'm sorry, Mr. Booker. I don't agree with you with that. So that's my feeling. It's the cost, the lack of revenue, and the fact that we are already operating at a loss at this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you. Alan? Alan, can you pronounce your last name for me, please? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not the type normally to get up in front of a group to complain, but when the gentleman spoke about the proximity of the closest condo, that would be me. I am the one that's 88 feet away. And I'm an avid sports lover. I think the world of any athlete, they're amazing. It's great exercise for us, especially as we get older. However, when I moved here, the Venetian Golf and River Club was a very attractive option for me. The serenity, the quietness, the beauty of just the complete complex just blew me away. When I moved here, I wanted to retire in my forever home, and I thought that's what this would be. And I have to admit, guys, I'm not against pickleball. I think it'd be a great sport. I don't think this is the right location for it at all. First of all, the gentleman with the fence, that's not going to do me any good. I'm in the second floor condo. An 8-foot fence is absolutely no good for me at all. So I would just ask the CDD group here to look at the possibility of serving everybody that's impacted by this. I would ask the residents that are here watching on Zoom, What would you do if this was in your backyard, going across the street from your condo or your house? That's all I'm trying to say. I mean, and now hearing that there's 9 courts going down, not even 3/4 of a mile away. And I agree with the other lady that said, hey, you know, it's not gonna do any good to increase our home values. I mean, really, pickleball is loud. The sound walls are gonna do nothing for me. The trees are gonna do nothing for me. Is that gonna increase my home value or decrease my home value when I do come to try to sell? You know, the people that are on the backside of the nation, it's not gonna impact you. Think about those of us that it is gonna impact, and what would you do if you were in my shoes? You know, again, we're paying a premium. The Venetian is a very prestigious place to live. We pay a pretty penny in taxes and CDD fees already. And this is not what I bought in for. You know, I know that they said this is a recreational area. I could live with tennis courts. Pickleball, I mean, in the morning, I mean, I had my sliders and windows open from October through May, 8 months out of the year. And all I'm gonna hear at 7 o'clock in the morning is pickleball going back and forth. Waking up my friends that come to, you know, and my family, my nieces and nephews that come to visit, you know, and late at night. Again, guys, I'm just saying, is this what's really best for us when we're building 9 more courts less than 3/4 of a mile from here? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Effie Farinosi.
I had to run home to get some materials, but that's a hard act to follow, Alan. Well said, really well said. Oh shoot, my readers, which I did bring. Okay, so,
Please use the microphone.
okay. What the gentleman who described what might be happening with sound. Oh, what the gentleman who described what might be happening with sound explained, that was really an inadequate explanation with all due respect. I have been talking with acoustical engineers every day. I have stacks of paper all over my house. I printed everything out because I don't like doing anything on the computer, so I have just stacks of articles everywhere. This is a huge problem, my friends, in every community that's already established and then is trying to put pickleball into it. This might be a little boring, but it's brief, so if you could please try to stay with me for this. Frequent pickleball sounds are typically about 70 decibels at about 100 feet away from the strike of the ball. Residents in homes located in a quiet residential area that are within 100 feet of the pickleball courts are used to noise levels of about 40 decibels. Therefore, the level of pickleball noise is 30 decibels louder. And remember, and this is important, if I've lost you, please be aware of this. And remember, each time you increase a sound by 10 decibels, it will sound twice as loud. So an increase of 10 decibels plus 10 decibels, or 2 times as loud as 2 times as loud as 2 times as loud, or 8 times as loud. That's a significant increase in loudness. Would that be annoying? Probably. So that is what came, so my whole talk was going to be with a big chart with all the decibel levels and and I still wish I would have done that because that seems to what would have made sense, but I was talked out of it not being an acoustician. If people ask me questions maybe that I couldn't answer. So now if I have time, I would like to present what I wrote for today. Do I have time to do that or not really?
I don't know how much time she have left.
She has 1 minute left.
1 minute to go.
Okay, I'm not trying to steal anyone's happiness. I'm merely here to preserve my own and what I thought I was buying into. I bought this home in this spot because I have a medical condition and this necessitates me being in a peaceful and quiet setting. I pay $8,000 a year in taxes here, just like everybody else, to not live in an apartment complex setting. I pay without complaint what buys me the serenity and peace that my physiology so desperately needs. We all bought our homes here with full knowledge and acceptance of tennis courts for tennis and a golf game. We did not buy our homes to be near pickleball or any other objectionable sport. If there had been pickleball near us, we wouldn't have bought our homes here in the first place. There were rumors at one time of a cement plant going in somewhere nearby. Every resident in this place was up in arms. So, you know, that kind of goes to show you, nobody wants the noise right next to their house. And, you know, I love this neighborhood. I love the people in this neighborhood. I feel dug in. I feel at home. I feel safe. I feel happy here. I love everything about the Venetian. I really don't want to have to move, which is what I would have to do. And when undertaking a complex undertaking of this magnitude, you have to have acousticians to make everybody feel comfortable. Everything I've read, and I have read everything, says you have to have a 10-foot fence with the very best acoustical silencing mechanism in place that money can buy. Not 8 feet, 10 feet.
Ms. Farinosi, your time is up.
Oh, darn. Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing, and both of my brothers called me last night and they said, fight like hell, sis. One's an avid pickleball player, the other one's a doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Belinda, also I think all the supervisors got a letter from Ms. Farinosi about, though I'm not going to read the letter, of course, there's personal medical information in it. I just want to acknowledge that we have received that letter.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Pat Hinch. Pat?
I'm reading this for a resident who is still up north, and she wasn't available to join us via Zoom today. Venetian Board of Supervisors. There are several communities planned for Laurel Road that will include pickleball courts. I feel strongly that adding pickleball courts in our community will increase the value of our homes and accommodate residents who currently play pickleball elsewhere. The addition of 3 pickleball courts adjacent to the tennis courts provides amenities without having to spend money to build restroom facilities. Having the River Club's dining room just feet away can also increase revenue for our club. Mr. Shapaker reviewed the design of the proposed pickleball courts, placing 3 pickleball courts adjacent to the tennis courts. The city requires 80 parking spaces. Mr. Shapaker confirmed that we actually have 123 parking spaces and that the pickleball courts would only remove 13 parking spaces, being in full compliance. I encourage you to support the addition of pickleball courts for our community. This is from Pam Perry. Thank you.
Just one change on that. We have 135 on parking.
Okay,
It's
135.
After it's built, we would
Okay.
have 123.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jim. Jim Bouquet? He left? Okay. Peter Phillips? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to open up for public comment from the Zoom participants. At this time, Zoom participants, please raise your hand. If you are calling via phone and you are logged in via phone, please hit *9 to raise your hand. The first hand I see raised is Joe Spalina. Joe?
Good morning. I have 2 clarifying questions. The first one is for the engineer. Can you repeat again the decibel numbers between the tennis courts and the pickleball? I believe you said 65 for the tennis courts and 50 for the pickleball courts.
55.
Is that correct?
55.
55, Joe.
55 for pickle and 65 for tennis. So the other question was for Melinda. Was that a visual for this, on this Zoom call that the engineer was pointing to?
No,
If there was not available, it was not viewable.
no, but the meeting is being broadcast via YouTube, so it can be viewed via YouTube as well.
Right, but you can't do Zoom and YouTube. That's okay, but that's irrelevant. I've been at the Venetian since 2006, and I do appreciate the concerns and the situations that the pickleball may create down the road. I like to point out that there are 1,300 and change homes, so above 1,200 homes at the River Club. And there are tennis courts, 6 of them, that are a little bit closer to some of the buildings there. And I play tennis and I play pickleball. And I tell you, tennis is just as loud as the pickleball. The difference between my preference between pickleball and tennis is that I can play more pickleball than I can play tennis, meaning that I can play longer, I can exercise for a full 1.5 to 2 hours. You have an opportunity to take a rest. When you play tennis, and I did, I pulled muscles, I had tennis elbow, and so on and so forth. Right now, I go to the park, a park in Venice called Foxwood, something Park, and I started playing in December, and I was delighted to find quite a few Venetian residents that do play pickleball. So I let the committee and the board decide whether or not it's appropriate to go and order someone to do a professional sound study. But it sounded like someone was reading advertisement from sound engineers before, but then again, it's not my experience, so I can't say. I'd like to say also that I think it's great that the park is being built up the street. The last reading from the Venetian parcels, it was saying that it was not being approved yet. And once they approve it, I don't know how long it will take to build it. And although we're only having 3 courts built, I think the 3 is better than none. The tennis courts have lights on. The tennis courts are available for people to play tennis at night. Pickleball courts should be available to be played. Yes, I understand about the paddles. You could do that. You could request that the paddle noise will reduce the noise and all of that good stuff, which is okay. I also like to ask the engineer, did they study the bouncing of the basketball that's situated by the parking lot there, or at least it has been while I was there in the wintertime?
Joe?
So overall, yes, we have to be considerate of our neighbors. Everyone deserves to have their dream home, 1,300 or plus residents. Some of us are there in the wintertime, some of us are there full-time. However, you can't hold back. You can't say, no, we don't need pickleball courts when every other community is building pickleball courts.
Joe?
So I think,
Joe, we need
I'd like
you to wrap up. Your time is up.
Well, I support the pickleball courts, and I thank the committee for doing their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra, Nick?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, just hearing a lot of concern about noise from residents that live in close proximity to the River Club. And my question is, why would you purchase a home within 500 feet of the River Club when they have a large pool that has water aerobics, playing music with a microphone, when they have the tiki bar having happy hour on Friday night playing loud music, when the River Club sometimes hosts events on the back lawn that plays music, Then they have the tennis courts. And then they have aerobics in the parking lot closest to residential homes. And they're playing music. They have hula hoop going over there with music. So I guess I have a hard time understanding where you would have thought you wouldn't hear anything from the amenities. So I am supporting pickleball. I think the noise is not an issue since there's so much other noise going on there. And then I just want to make a comment about your home value. Amenities don't increase the value of your home. What they do increase is the sellability of the community that you live in. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bob Cybulski. Bob, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good morning. We purchased about 4 years ago, and we knew there was tennis courts, and there's some noise Saturday mornings, but it's subtle, acceptable. My concern is the 8-foot fence, I think, does nothing. And who's going to monitor the paddles and balls that you're talking about? I don't think you can have someone out there checking everybody that comes in, for the paddle and the balls. Also, parking, you're losing not a lot of spots, but you're losing near the tennis courts. And I can tell you that this spring, a lot of people were parking on Bella Vista. They'd open their doors, or they had SUVs. They'd sit on the back of the SUV, change their tennis sneakers, and go in. Now, they just sent out an email, and it was better, but it still wasn't. There were still people parking there. So my concern is, with even less spots in the tennis courts, are the people going to want to park in that back parking lot, or are we going to have more cars parked on Bella Vista? Also, the noise. The lady preceding me was talking about the pool. During the day, we don't hear a lot of noise during the day. At nighttime is a concern. Just a kind of an FYI, over the winter, I think it was during one of the holidays, it'd be 10 o'clock at night. I think I was taking out the garbage, and I heard all this noise over in the pool. A lot of young kids over there, and I don't think they were supposed to be there. But at night is a concern, and when things are quieter, you can hear the noise. And the lights or the courts, I think, are a concern for the pickleball. And also, it's a concern that they're not sure what the hours are going to be. It would be nice if this goes forward, if we could find out what the hours are going to be, 6, 7 in the morning, 10 o'clock at night, what those hours are going to be. So obviously, I'm against pickleball. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, I believe, is it Barb? I see Barb. I'm not sure. Barb, can you unmute yourself? Barb Jasper?
Okay. Hi. I'm in totally full support of the pickleball courts. I think it's a great asset to our community. All the communities around here now have it. I know when people come to look for homes here, purchase homes, one of the questions they ask is, do you have pickleball? It is bigger than tennis. I am a tennis player. I have no issue with the courts being behind where the tennis courts are. It's as far as parking goes, we have plenty of parking up there. We have the Riverside, the River Club parking lot is there. So I don't see a reason why anybody be parking where the condos are. Maybe they do, and maybe they should be told that they can't park there, but it is not a parking issue. why there is complaints about noise. You have a basketball there. Basketball is a lot louder than pickleball, I'll tell you that. And tennis provides a lot of noise too. It may not be involved so much, but it's a lot of loud voices. And so I really support everything that Pam Perry has said about it. And I support what Sandy Nick says about it. And Joe Blaney, I'm totally on board with them. I'm not a pickleball player, but I support it for the community. Thank you.
What's that?
Jasper. Plus.
Jerry, is anybody else going to speak that's with you?
Oh,
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. I'm total favor of the pickleball courts.
Could you state your name for us, please?
Who is that?
Jerry Quinn.
Thank you.
I am total, in favor of pickleball courts. There are a lot of people that want to play pickleball that are going to Fox, Worthy or wherever it is to play, which is a long way away. I am a tennis player. I have played tennis over at Island Walk that has 8 pickleball courts right next to the tennis courts. The sound is not a problem. You don't even hear it. It's like white noise. It's not a problem. I think that if we had pickleball courts, it would take some of the pressure off of the tennis courts right now, because there are a lot of tennis players that would prefer to play pickleball. So I'm in total favor of the pickleball courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, are you going to speak?
No,
we're good.
Okay. I see no other hands raised. I will call one more time for public comment on the Zoom participants. You can raise your hand by clicking on the reactions tab at the bottom of the screen and select raise your hand. Or if you're calling in, you can hit *9. Michael Seaman.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, actually, I am in my car. I just left pickleball courts in Vandalia, Ohio. I just gave lessons to beginners. I don't know how long to speak, but I can tell you that I am 100%. I got it started here because I learned in Florida several years ago, and as of this morning when I left, we had 267 active players on our roster. We started obviously with just a couple people. We have pickleball 3 courts indoors at our rec center, and the courts that I just left, there are 8 courts that are across from apartments. When we first started this, people knew that I was in charge, and so they came to me and said, you know, we don't like this idea. It's going to be too much noise. There's going to be too many cars here. We have handled every single problem that has come up. The people now that live in the apartments have no problem with pickleball. The noise is just, as some other people have said, it's not that loud. It's white noise, whatever you want to call it. We had one issue with parking. Too many cars were parked in front of their apartments, so we let all the players know, please park on the other side of the street and in the parking lot. So that worked out actually very fine. I don't want to repeat the same thing a lot of other people have said when I was playing pickleball, but it is the fastest growing sport in the country. Literally every place you go, they either have courts or courts are coming to their community. So a friend of mine just is in process of buying a place at the Venetian, and her first question was, do they have pickleball? And I told her, well, I think it's coming. She said, good, because I love pickleball. It's a great sport for all ages. I agree with some of the people who are saying many of the tennis players will probably play both sports. So it's a huge plus for the Venetian to have a sport that will attract people to to the Venetian and we'll keep people there. I honestly, and I know you're going to think I'm biased because I play pickleball. I'm a tennis player too. I like playing tennis, but I have a lot of arthritic issues, so pickleball is a lot easier for me to play. I don't think the pickleball courts where they're designed to be right now are in whatever the term is for a recreational area that includes the club, includes the hot tub, includes the pool, includes tennis, includes gathering areas. So anyone who chose to live very close to that knew that when they moved in. So I don't see that as an issue. I've looked where the courts are going to be, and I don't think anybody that lives close by is going to have an issue whatsoever. Those houses are even further than the apartments are where we play now. So I don't see noise as being an issue. There is adequate parking in the parking lot outside of the courts. So I don't see parking as being an issue. If there's any issue that there really is a problem, it's going to be that if there's only 3 courts, there's going to be a need for 5 or 6 or 7, but that's a positive problem. So there'll have to be some system of who plays for when and how long. So I guess my final thoughts would be I'm 100% in favor. It's there might be a couple small negatives, but there probably are 100 positives to the 1 or 2 negatives. So I thoroughly support pickleball. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a final call for Zoom participants.
I would like to speak.
Please, go ahead.
My name is Audrey Gordon and I live in Canada and I have a home in the Venetian and we're snowflakes, so we go back and forth all year long. I may have missed this at the beginning of the presentation, but what is the cost going to be for residents to have these pickleball courts installed? Can you repeat that?
Well, we don't know yet.
Are we still at this $60,000 level?
I think she's asking about, is it going to be
A fee?
a fee?
We haven't,
No, what is, she wants to know the overall cost
For the construction.
construction. Yeah, we don't know yet.
Well, I know what I'm wanting. I'm wanting to know what the costs are that will be passed on to the residents.
Money has been put aside for it already in the budget.
Audrey, did you hear that?
I think I heard money has already been put aside for it.
Yes, there's an amount allocated in this fiscal year's budget in the River Club. I believe it was 175,000.
Right. But that was for the pickleball and the dog park when we were doing that, so it would be significantly less.
Mr. Cassell, please don't
In
speak out.
Venetian, and so I'm in favor.
Thank you.
What
I think it's fair that we do give a number here. The question has been asked, and I think we should give a number, so.
Well, we did have a number at 175, but that was, and that money has been allocated. That was when we were talking about at the dog park and pickleball under the FPL lines.
And parking.
And including parking and the whole bit.
Right.
Having it here, the landscaping, the works. Having it here will be certainly put out to bid, I'm sure, but I would imagine it's going to be certainly less than that. But we're not talking about assessment or anything. The money is there. Could I get the name of the lady who just spoke?
Audrey Gordon?
Thank you.
And I have not done the cost estimate.
But what we do know is the cap is 175, because that's what's been allocated.
That's what's been allocated.
In other communities where we're putting them in, and we're probably doing somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 per quarter.
When do we get to talk?
Audrey? Was that your only comment, Audrey? Okay, so we are going to move forward.
Yes, that was my only
Okay, could you mute yourself, Audrey, please?
comment.
Thank you. Okay, so the record shall indicate that the district manager did call upon all of the participants via Zoom for comment,
as well as that were present in
as
the
well
room.
as those that were present.
Right.
Rick, do you have any closing remarks?
Just clarification on the lighting, because when we were talking about putting it over by the wires, we were very strong about not having lighting. I think you added lighting to this proposal in case we wanted to have lighting, but that does not mean we're going to have lighting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that'll be a decision made down the road whether or not we want to have night pickleball or not. Previously, we did not at the other location. Am I correct in all that?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
the rest of the board remembers all that. So
Yes, yes.
So that's on the agenda, or on our minutes someplace, that lighting is not a done deal by any stretch. And personally, I would be against it if we voted again, if we vote on it again, I will be against it, because I don't think it's necessary. Which also keeps the cost down, which keeps lighting, et cetera, out of the neighborhood issue.
Okay.
So.
Why are we investing money on?
Sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay. Rick, did you have anything else you needed to add? Could you use the microphone, Rick? The participants can't hear you.
I really don't have anything else to say. I know there was a lot of talk about the noise, and what I could do is I could walk across the street just to give people a peace of mind, so I could take the decibel readings, for which I have. I could stand close to the tennis courts, and I could walk, and I could read that, and I could report back. That seems like it was the biggest concern. And again, I mean, there was some great comments. You know, the board, it's your decision if you want to move forward with the the engineer. I've done quite a bit of work with these guys for developments along major roads. So I see what they do, and if you, I mean, $2,000 sounds like a really good number, because you know, they seem like they start around 10. So, but again, I mean, if you want me to, I could check for that, and maybe that'll help satisfy some of the concerns. Just for your guys, the info, I had the decibel reading going with some comments, and most of the talks would vary between 53 and 68. So the lowest conversational speech matched what we read standing right next to the courts without any sound barrier or any vegetation. That's the sound we were hearing.
Rick, I do have a question, is this the appropriate time?
Are we finished with public comment? Are we closing public comment?
Yeah, it's already closed.
Okay. There's been a lot of banter back about which noise level is higher. And what I'm hearing is the noise level coming off the tennis courts is higher than the noise level coming off the pickleball courts.
The decibel readings that I took standing next to both, pickleball was less. Now, some of the arguments, if you read some of this stuff, which I've read a bunch of them too, the frequency of the pickleball is greater than the tennis, so there's more pop than there is with the tennis, but the actual sound levels are, 55 to 65, like Tyler mentioned, that's double. So tennis is twice as loud as what the pickleball is.
And if necessary, we could heighten the fence, right? If that's going to keep more sound down, we could go from 8 to 10 if we chose to.
That would be part of the city approvals. Right now, they tend, in their requirements, they tend to max that out at the 8, but that'd be part of the.
Yeah, but if the city said, okay, go 8 feet is fine, if on our own, we say we want to go 10,
That would just be part of the approval of the process.
So you'd ask for 8/10, 8 to 10 foot fence? Is that how you phrase it?
Well, if we wanted to go up to 10 is how I would say it. I would say.
Up to 10.
Yeah.
Good.
And Rick, there's never been any readings at the homes across the street.
I have not done it, and I was thinking that after I leave, I could do that with the tenants.
Well, depending on what happens here next, stick around.
I think you did a great
Well,
presentation.
okay.
I think that the comments from the audience were well prepared. And I mean, sound is certainly an issue, and we're going to do everything that we can to mitigate that as much as possible. The board back in June took a vote to proceed with this. And the next step, I would imagine, is going to be the planning board.
Yes.
And there's no further action this board would need to take
Yep.
today, unless, of course, you said you wanted, hey, we want to hold things or something along those lines. But you've already taken action, as was referenced by the chair, to move forward. This is one of the steps for moving forward.
This is one of the steps.
So if you're still on that path, there's no additional action that needs to be taken.
I agree. I don't think there's additional action, but I do think we have an outstanding issue about the sound. And as we move forward, that's got to be constant on our agenda here.
Without a doubt. And I
Yeah, I
think
agree.
In many ways.
I think the point, the pictures that were shown from Aria, I guess it was, with a very thick vegetation around it is extremely important. I live in the affected area, not within 250 feet.
I've seen it.
But
Thank you.
I'm comfortable certainly with the sound abatement that we've
Those are
discussed,
great. Thank you.
with the vegetation that we've discussed. And I think we should, as we had agreed, move forward with this and put it in the hands of the planning board and see where we go.
I'm in full agreement with that.
Okay, we're not taking a vote. We already took a vote.
No, I'm
So,
agreeing with your
Okay.
position.
I'll even agree with that.
No,
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Rick, supervisors?
No. Thank you, Rick.
This
Rick,
concludes
thank you.
the
Good job,
pickleball
Rick.
Workshop.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Supervisors, it's 11:11 a.m. Before we move on to the next workshop, should we take a 10-minute break?
Sounds
Yes.
good. Thank
We're back on at 11:27 a.m. We are back on the record.
Our audience left.
Folks. Thank you.
We are back on the record at 11:27 a.m. Supervisors, the next item on the agenda is the workshop with Vesta. To review the River Club evaluation, this is behind tab number 1. We do have both Roy and Rudy present. Roy, who's going to lead on this? It's going to be you. Do you have a microphone?
Good morning. Still morning?
Still morning.
Okay. Belinda, we're staying on Zoom, right?
We're still on Zoom.
Okay.
So for the benefit of everyone, either here or out in Zoom land, I'm just going to make a couple of quick introductory comments. And then after speaking with the chair ahead of time, my intention is to sit down with my colleagues, make this more of a conversation with the board as much as it is a presentation by Vesta today. But I did make a couple notes to stay on track as far as some introductory comments. And some of this is just probably shaped by what I had an opportunity to listen to today at the beginning of the meeting. First of all, personally, I would never want Vesta to be viewed as a source of negativity or criticism about Venetian or the River Club. I just want to state that first and foremost. Secondly, in our evaluation, we tried to strike a balance in 2 different ways. One, in gathering material to form a basis for our evaluation, we tried to listen to a lot of people, including each of the board members, all 5, including Carl at the time. But the other part of the balance is we've also tried to offer the benefit of our 30 years of experience in the business. The second way we tried to strike a balance is we tried to provide a high-level aspirational viewpoint combined with some very specific practical recommendations and ways to close some gaps. And the word gap is important here because if anybody views our report as seemingly overly negative or critical, I just need to remind everyone, the chair asked us to provide an evaluation that essentially looked at where we are today with the club and where the Vesta thinks we could be in the future with the club and how we would close those gaps. Well, if we're going to spend time in our report identifying gaps, it's going to feel a little critical. It's going to feel a little negative to people, but that was never our desire to be overly critical or negative about Venetian or the club. So if I need to have some regrets, it might be that the overall more positive tone, the aspirational tone of our report didn't come through loud and clear in some people's eyes. And so really those are my introductory comments. And then I think the way we could go through the report is we provide a board with hard copies of the, not the 13-page monstrosity that was lambasted today, but on July 12th, we provided a summary of the 14 pages. We provided hard copies of that for the board. So I want us to go through that. Unfortunately, the audience members don't have that summary report, but it'll sound very familiar to the written report that was provided and is public record. And then in addition to that, we provided the board with a report that we received the weekend that we were making the presentation on July 12th, which was from a previous board at Venetian, I believe dated 2013. So my intention, Mr. Chairman and supervisors, would be go through our report for about 30 minutes, and then maybe spend about 10 minutes looking at that other report that was produced by a previous board 8 years ago. And then, but at the same time, our report's basically on page 5 of the PowerPoint presentation. There's a 1-page summary. So I know a gentleman made a comment that our 13 pages could have been summarized into 1 page. We did have an executive summary in our written report that was a page and a half. We tried to condense that down to this 1 page on page 5. And there's basically 3 main points. And so this is where we'll get into sort of the meat. And what I would suggest for the supervisors and the benefit of our conversation, let's just take each point as an opportunity to have a conversation, have a dialogue. Instead of me going through a long presentation of this whole thing, we'll just stop after each point and give each supervisor, starting perhaps with the chair, an opportunity to offer comments, questions, feedback. So let's do that. So the first gap that we recognized in our view, again, based on just our first 3 months there, and I will say real quickly, we've had almost 3 more months since we wrote this report in June. And we've learned more in the last 3 months that possibly would reshape some of the things that we would say, and we'll come to that as we go through each point. Some things we've learned since we wrote the report in June. So the first one that we perceived as a possible disparity was a lack of alignment and unity between key groups of stakeholders. And the key groups we tried to identify in the report is Team Venetian, the on-site team managing the club, Vesta's management team as the management company, the board is another group, your committees could potentially be viewed as another group, and then the residents in general. So the bulk of our report was structured by looking at each of those key groups. So here's where some of the key takeaways that we felt about lack of alignment or unity. We thought one way to address that is a mission statement, not knowing that you did already have a previous board create a vision, mission statement, and strategic plan. So again, I'd like to come back to that later on in a few minutes. And then secondly, deliver the appropriate and necessary engagement, oversight, and support for Denise and her team by Vesta. And this is a point I really want to stress, is that we take our role, in essence, as a management company, as employing the team that's here, managing, overseeing the team that's here, and supporting the team that's here, but not doing their job. And that's a distinction that we need to make for everybody. It's not Rudy's and mine and our colleagues' role to come in here and try to do their job. We want to support them in doing their job. We want to assist them in doing their job. We want to oversee them in doing their job. We want to evaluate how they're doing their job. But those are two different roles, and they're not the same. However, we do want us all to feel like we're one team, and that we're all Team Vesta serving Venetian. And I think Denise has said to us recently, you feel like we are making progress in that sense of unity and alignment. So I don't want to harp on it, camp on it, but in the report, we observed other aspects of maybe lack of alignment, lack of unity. But I think everyone that lives here and participates and engages here knows what some of those examples are. And lately, it feels like pickleball might be one of them. So that's really a good place to stop. And just have a conversation with you folks. Again, I'm very linear in how I want to go through this, and try not to have maybe the conversation bleed into subsidy, no subsidy, lifestyle. Let's just deal with this issue of alignment and unity. We don't feel it's our place to suggest a mission statement for the district or even for the club. I would suggest when we get to the point of looking at what was already produced by a previous board, it's possible you want to keep what they've already done, you want to ignore what they've already done. That's completely the board's prerogative. All we're trying to do is make suggestions. Honestly, I will tell you real quickly, I think what that previous board did was very good work. I think it was at a unique time when there was a unique transition going on in Venetian from developer control to more resident control and POA issues, things going to the CDD. But if it's been about 8 years since you've done it, you would probably suggest at a minimum, it's time to revisit things like a vision statement and strategic plan and things like that. So anyway, that's a good place for me to pause and open it up to the chair and anybody else that want to ask questions or offer comments on that particular issue.
I would agree with that entirely. Something that was done 8 years ago and what was appropriate 8 years ago may not be completely appropriate now. So I think it's time that we take a look at our mission statement and we as a board decide where we're going. And that will keep us in line with what the residents want, what the community needs in general, and cause us, I think, to take a good hard look at many areas that we have a lot of control over.
When we get to that report, in the middle of it, they had about 6 points in their strategic, in that report, they had about 6 points in their strategic plan. We'll come back to that. If I can keep us on track and keep this whole thing to 40, 45 minutes. 3 of those 6 points are relevant to the River Club. And I would suggest if we have time today, we can just talk briefly about 3 of those 6 points that's relevant to the River Club. And the rest of it, you guys could decide, we don't need to talk about it today or ever, or we can talk about it in the future. So that'd be my suggestion about that particular report.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment?
Just one more thing.
Under the mask.
Oh, where, here?
Yeah.
With the mission statement, it seems to me that there should be some kind of a board packet. When I joined the board, when Steve joined the board, you walk in and you go to a meeting and you start. There was nothing given to us about what had gone on previously.
We would have liked having this too.
Amen. So, it's wonderful that they did this, but it kind of got, at least for the last 4 years, 3 years, it's in limbo someplace. So I think some kind of a board packet would be very helpful.
Especially for new board members, you're saying.
Going forward, and we're gonna have a new one sometime this fall. So, start out on the right foot. The other thing I wonder is, did this board hamstring you, Vesta, with the team Venetian by the comments that were made when you came on board relative to making sure all our employees came back?
I think that's a very appropriate question, Mr. Supervisor. And I want to preface our response, by saying that in our July 12th meeting, in this presentation, we try to go to some lengths to say that our written evaluation was never intended to be a performance review of the staff.
Correct.
I want to remind everybody of that. And today is not intended to be a performance review of the staff. However, the performance reviews are starting to be carried out by Denise with the rest of her staff, and then by Vesta with Denise. So we said in our report, we would be doing performance review at Venetian, just as a footnote to all of that. But to your question, I reflect back on almost a year ago and think that, number one, we were handcuffed a little bit just during the RFP process because of your blackout period. If you remember, we did not have an opportunity to interact. None of the potential bidders had an opportunity to interact with any of you folks. So it was probably logical in terms of ensuring a level playing field in terms of those bids, in terms of the RFP process, but it created a lot of, uncertainty about what are some of the issues. What are some of the concerns of the existing board members, including 2 that were just about ready to come on the board in November. So there was a lot of questions, uncertainty from that standpoint. And the reason I touch on that is because in our proposal, without knowing much of anything, we said, well, here's our GM candidate in our proposal. And we brought the gentleman to the meeting. We weren't trying to pass judgment on Denise. We just didn't know. We just didn't know what was driving, at a minimum, the need to even do an RFP for the contract. So then at the follow-up meeting in December, the board members wrestled with that whole dynamic of what you're asking of retaining the staff. And it was a very close vote. And I remember standing up and saying, we're flexible. I can give you specific examples of large contracts where we came in and we retained all the staff, including 95% of the staff up in Apollo Beach at Mirror Bay. When we say we're flexible, we want to go back to what I said a minute ago. We want to oversee, manage, and support people that want to be in the communities they're serving, and they want to do a good job in the communities they're serving. And we're standing here a year ago, we don't know anything about these people. We don't know how you feel about them. We don't know how they feel about Venetian. All we knew is we had a shotgun marriage, which is kind of implied in your question. But none of that intimidates us as a management company, because I said we do have a track record of working with the existing staff. And we alluded in our report to the critical importance of the GM role. And again, that's why we came in with a GM candidate in our proposal a year ago, because that is a very crucial role. You have her sitting here at the table with you for a reason. We've enjoyed working with Denise and the rest of the team. I think at a minimum, the vote created uncertainty on their part, and we wanted to put their minds at ease. And we were meeting with them before the holidays and saying, we don't have a desire for anybody to go anywhere. So we just had to navigate those waters, is probably the last part of our question. We're probably still navigating them, but we're probably a lot further down the rapids than we were 8-10 months ago. I'm sorry, I was a little long-winded, but that's my answer.
Okay.
Roy, I was one of the most outspoken. I was one of the most outspoken people about maintaining our staff, but that was never meant to imply tenure for life. So in conversations that we had, certainly I think I made it clear, if somebody is not performing as they should, those people don't have a free ride. and no one ever should have a free ride that way. And I think the performance reviews that are going on are a good step in taking a very close look at our employees, at everything going on, including the job that Denise does, and where do we need to improve? Where can we improve? Who is not hitting the mark? And then you're the management company, somebody that's not hitting the mark, somebody that has been given an opportunity to improve and shows no desire to improve or whatever. There's going to be some tough decisions that are going to have to be made. And I will support them.
Well, we've heard that in individual conversations from the board members, so I don't think Vesta is misaligned with the board about that particular dynamic. Again, it touches on what happened at the very beginning per Mr. McCafferty's question, as well as your comments, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate that. I don't want to pass over too quickly. The second part of that point, we said there needs to be a more cohesive integration of three fairly independent components: a strong proactive leadership by the board, active support by the committees that you've empowered and appointed, and then strong day-to-day management by your management team and your management personnel. I think another way of saying that is we're all in this together, is how we see it. And when we see signs of lack of alignment, lack of unity, we put comments in our report where it can affect the board's morale, it can affect the residents' morale. They come to meetings feeling like they're not being heard, that they're not seeing action. And I think one of the challenges that we all recognize, just need to remind ourselves of, the public nature of a CDD creates some challenges from a management standpoint. I remember standing here a year ago when we were talking about that very question before you made your vote about keeping the employee. I remember standing here saying, this is kind of an awkward question to talk about at a public meeting, whether we want to keep people or not here. You know, I mean, from an employment standpoint, you normally wouldn't be talking about that stuff in the public.
We don't have any other opportunities.
We don't have any other option.
To do these things.
Right. And obviously you have district council here for a good reason.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, just as a bit of a reminder, we've been dealing with CDs continuously without interruption since 1997. We're not attorneys, don't pretend to be, but we know how you function. We've embraced the public nature of CDs, absolutely. And we try to strike that balance where we try to protect employees' interests as much as we can, knowing that there's a strong public component to all this. But anyway, we are all in this together. I don't want to sound cliched. A lot of what we need to do and are doing is behind the scenes. You wouldn't expect us to come in here at a board meeting and tell you how the sausage is being made every month. But we are working on those things. And I would say real quickly, what's really helped, and I don't need to necessarily speak for both of my colleagues here, but I'm going to try. Rudy, because he lives in the area, works in the area, as opposed to our previous management team, you've been much more consistent, much more engaged with Denise and with the team than 3 months ago, 2 months ago, correct?
Yeah, thank you.
And that's definitely helping us in terms of our alignment and our unity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We see Rudy visible at a lot of meetings.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You'll get the bill pretty soon, but.
No, we've been quite happy with Rudy's appearance as it relates to racket sports and all. And the fact that he has addressed the consistent complaints that we've had with regards to racket sports. His presence has been very helpful.
Okay, let's go to the second one. And this is one that we probably want to modify after issuing the report 2 months ago. Insufficient engagement satisfaction with the club by a large percentage of residents. I think the challenge is, how do we define a large percentage of residents? And I'll go back to Jill's comment during audience comments. When the three of us prepared for this meeting a few weeks ago, we said absolutely it's time for another survey. A very comprehensive survey that touches on all aspects of the River Club. If you guys want to make it more than that, we can do that. You can piggyback on it and make it about whatever you want to make it about. But we want that intel, we want that information to benefit us. And I know we need it, and I think you're nodding your head that you want it. So our goal is to get it out by the end of this month and have it turned back. The deadline for getting it back to us is the end of October. And then if you have a second meeting at the end of November, we could issue a summary report of the survey. We could decide how transparent we want to be with the survey. If it's public record, it's public record. If it's Vesta and it's not public record, We could talk with district council offline about all that. I don't think we have time today about the mechanics of that, but our goal would be get it back by the end of October, share the results with you, ideally no later than the end of November, within 30 days, or the first meeting in December, and see what we want to do with the survey results. But we do have a desire to always be listening to the residents. And one of our challenges of writing the report is, are we only listening to the people who are, quote, the squeaky wheels and the board members? We even we had a conversation with a past board member. We want it to be a well-rounded perspective, of course, but clearly in any community, only a certain percentage is going to be engaged. Only a certain percentage is going to come to the meetings, send emails. So a survey is a good way to do that. And then even then with a survey, we might be fortunate to get 15, 20% responses on the surveys. So that was one aspect we wanted to touch on. And then lifestyle was a second component. Increase the quantity and quality of lifestyle programming. So part of what we've learned the last couple of months is they are already doing a large number of events. COVID, no COVID, you've been doing a large number, and I think the number was over 60 so far in this fiscal year or calendar year.
I believe it was, not including.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was fiscal year or calendar year, but either way, within either 6 months or 9 months, you've done over 60 things. Now, the one thing that we've heard that we think we want to provide some additional input and support for is the possibility of some off-site events and activities. Let me just comment on that real quickly. Rudy knows better than I do. In the club industry, it makes all the sense in the world to do as much on-site as you can to leverage your food and beverage operation, boost the food and beverage results. Food and beverage go real well with events. I mean, that's very logical. But as a management company, we do love to encourage creativity, trying new things, doing new things. And so offsite stuff could be a strong component of that. Chris is already starting to work on some of that, right, Denise? And we were hopeful that we might have some specific examples of what that would look like today. We're not quite there yet, but if the board cares, we'll be prepared to show you some of that in the coming weeks. So we're not, as a management company, we're not satisfied or content to just rest on our laurels, do what we've always done. We specifically heard this request or idea from one of the specific supervisors during writing the report. I'll just give the mic to Denise real quickly, and then we'll turn it over to the supervisors. About lifestyle programming overall, what are some of your thoughts right now?
Chris has been calling several companies in the area, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to start with local things, maybe trying to find a theater night for Venetians, dinner cruises that are out of Sarasota, doing things where we can set it up, possibly get a group rate where it's cheaper, do dolphin sunset cruises, and just advertise to the community, we're doing this cruise, who wants to come out? And then it'll eventually be expanded to maybe one day, wow, this is very popular, they love going off base and doing events together. Let's talk about getting a bus and going to a ball game, or doing something a little further out that's going to take transportation instead of 30 cars driving to Tampa. So that's where we're starting at. We're starting locally. I think Chris has a list of 30 different things that he's checking into, and it's just taking time to get that information.
Yes, sir.
I might have the wrong number. Have you? Nope. Am I right that about 60% of our people don't use the River Club? Is that number accurate?
So I'm gonna give Denise a chance to answer this. So this goes back to my opening comment on this particular point, the second point, saying, how do we define a large percentage of residents? So you've got statistics that say how many people are using the club at least once per year, which is a high percentage.
Yeah, we went back to our records and found people who spent money at the River Club, and there were 400, I believe 450, 440 that were not. And this is consistent with last year, the year before, and the year before. Even with COVID, I thought the number would be higher. So you are in, I believe it is 68% use this club throughout the year. There are, I believe 2 years ago when we did the numbers, there were about 100 people that spent $5,000 or more at the club. You have these ratings of it, and a large percent are 500 or more throughout the year. but 68% use this club at one time or another throughout the year.
They don't even come out for their birthday week when you do it?
We're not doing those anymore.
Yeah, well, some of them, young families, we have people who have young families and they just don't come here for dinner. So the social committee is looking at ways, how do we bring in those 400 people? Is it going to be a one-on-one? We're talking about starting an ambassador subcommittee type thing where our people become ambassadors to get those in.
So,
Roy?
so you're saying about a third of the people don't use it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, would a lifestyle director fulfill that need and provide that
Sure.
type of?
So the question was, would a change in the staffing structure with the identification or appointment of a role? I think we raised that question in our report. Here's what we're trying to do right now. I mean, conceptually, hypothetically, yes, is my simple answer to your question, Judge Booker. But here's what we're doing right now. Chris is already working on things, as Denise just said, a lot of things. Secondly, he does have some support from a company-wide lifestyle director in our company, a gentleman by the name of Ross Rubin. Very passionate about it. That's all he does every day. And we're trying to leverage, and we are leveraging his expertise, his ideas, his support. This goes back to Vesta being a support for the team. So they have periodic calls. We pull everybody across the state together. They share ideas. So that's not costing you guys anything. It's part of our management fee. So we're already right now doing some of it without going down the road of saying today, you need to hire a lifestyle director. Let's give this a try first. Then we could always revisit that question in
Next year's budget.
with what we're already doing. And see if we make a difference. And if we're not making a difference that way, then we may have to revisit your question, sir.
Okay.
Is that good for that one? I think we're good for that one.
I'm just going to make a comment about the things that Chris is working on. It came up at the social committee meeting this past Wednesday, I guess it was. And I'm now taking on the liaison for that with calls passing. So the list was very comprehensive that had been put together. And then we brainstormed a little bit about some other things. And one of the things that came up certainly was utilizing the expertise of some of the people in this community that can facilitate.
I wish I hadn't overlooked that part in terms of the things Chris is already working on and our lifestyle director supporting him. I wish I hadn't overlooked your social committee. And sometimes I don't think in terms of committees the way Rudy and Denise and you guys do. I'm just not used to that. But I absolutely acknowledge the value of those folks.
Well, Chris presented this to the committee, and it was my first, I had been the liaison some time ago, and then Carl took it over, and now, as I say, I'm back. But nonetheless, I thought it was great, because as Chris pointed out, we don't need to have every event around food.
Right.
But I do realize, as you say, food and beverage
go
well together. However, the baseball game, the night at the Venice Little Theater, that sort of thing, staying local first, I think is a great idea. I think it builds friendships, and it also, it's good for the entire community.
I think what we're talking about, again, as sort of an overarching comment, a very healthy, vibrant community like Venetian is healthy and vibrant in two overarching ways. There's activity to keep people active, and there's opportunities for social connections. Those are two different things, but they tie together. And sometimes an event off-site creates an opportunity for a social interaction and an activity that people otherwise wouldn't have here at the club. So we're all saying the same thing.
Yep. Yes, we are.
Thank you. All right, trying to keep moving. Third one, here comes the subsidy. Continued need for a significant financial subsidy. So the number 350 was mentioned in our report, 350,000. Denise updated me right during our break. What was budgeted this year was 328 from the food and beverage component of from the restaurant component of the subsidy. So really, I think that's the number to focus on is, I'll say real quickly, and I know they would say the same thing. When it comes to amenities, leave out the amenities that can drive revenue, primarily a restaurant. But for the most part, non-revenue producing amenities are always going to be subsidized in every community. They don't generate revenue. A pool is not going to generate revenue to pay for itself. So we all have to understand that. we're not suggesting that non-revenue producing amenities need to somehow perform better from a financial standpoint. The restaurant, and again, it's not for Vesta to decide what should be the amount of a subsidy. Should there be? That's not our place. Rudy's got 4,800 homes in Sun City Center, or is it 4,800, 5,800, 5,200, and you're having to subsidize your restaurant operation every year, annually. So more people or more events or more covers isn't going to solve all that. There's always going to be a need for that. I think our perspective as a management company is going back similar to lifestyle. We never want to settle for status quo. We always feel like it could be better. And we always feel like your financial results could be better. And I think you've got somebody with significant food and beverage experience now supporting the team. You've got a company that's got somewhere around 9 or 10 food and beverage operations across the state. Not to suggest that you maybe didn't have any of that expertise in the past, but we are going to pay attention to supporting, and the word we used in our report was trying to optimize the financial results. And we use that word for a specific reason. Optimize might mean $250,000 subsidy, $150,000 subsidy, 50. We're not suggesting what the number should be, but what we are saying is optimization for us is we're going to have a goal each year of trying to improve that number each year. And the number through initially what he's already got in place is a bulk purchasing agreement that's going to benefit the operation here. We're going to leverage our bulk purchasing capabilities across the state to benefit. We think we could lower costs potentially by as much as 10%. So we think we potentially could reduce the subsidy by at least $25,000 over a 12-month period. And then through programming and the events and coming out of COVID, we think revenue will almost naturally come up that way. So that's going to help. And then third, we discussed a few weeks ago the possibility of pricing I'm stuttering there, some price increases. And I'm on the record. Let's use an example. We discussed this as a team. At the risk of getting you four gentlemen and the audience really in the weeds, let's discuss the Sunday buffet for a moment. You're nodding your head. And Denise is the best person to discuss this, not me. But I was educated a few weeks ago by Denise. We're charging $9.95 for the Sunday buffet. And a gentleman stood up here today and said, this is not a restaurant, and it's not a restaurant. Because if it was a restaurant, you would not charge $9.95 for a Sunday buffet. If we charge $20.95, participation will go down. We charge $15.95, participation might go down. Could we charge $10.50? Could we charge $10.95? Would the participation stay strong with a 50 cent or a dollar bump? Because if anybody knows what's happening out right now in our economy, things are going up 5 to 10% across the board everywhere. So as a management company, we're sensitive. We don't want to see traffic drop off at your events, but there's only so much we could do on the cost side, and we just outlined part of it in terms of a bulk purchasing agreement. But from a pricing standpoint, I think you're at a place where you probably need to bump up some of those things. And it's because otherwise your entire community is subsidizing the handful of people that come and want to enjoy a $9.95 buffet. That's where this whole thing comes down to.
We can't keep 2018 prices in 2021. We all shop in the same supermarkets. We all get the same bills. Everything is going up. And certainly that's an area, at $9.99, it's the bargain of the county.
Of the state.
It certainly could go up. And the same is true with other prices. We have had people complain it's too expensive. I'm not paying $36 for Chilean sea bass, et cetera, et cetera. You know what? Nobody's selling it cheaper. And I think someone who says that the prices, if they go up $1 or $2 or whatever they go up. We had a steak night here, $36. Well worth it. Well worth it. The ones that complain aren't going to come anyway, but we can't be giving stuff away.
Well, I had an outside group here last week for lunch. And when they got their bills, each one of them said, this can't be right, it's too cheap.
Yep.
Well, we love being the nice guys,
Yeah.
but there's a point where we're starting to be too nice, sounds like, and listening just to the brief comments we've had already. So I'll just say real quickly, part of what we noted at the bottom of that page, page 5, is that what our management team would say to your team Venetian, which is now, we're all Vesta, what we just got done saying, again, is a balanced approach is the smart approach. We don't want to come in here and lay people off. We don't want to see orders come out twice as long as they are coming out today, because people will vote with their feet. It'll be the last time they come if service goes down. We don't want to see the quality of the food go down so much that people go, that's not what I've gotten here. That's not what I moved in. So we've got to create a balanced approach so the impact of all that is just almost not noticeable by anybody, including our staff. And we think we've got the smarts, the team, the talent to do that, and that would be the best approach. Instead of saying prices got to go up 20%, or we've got to lay people off, or we're going to have fewer servers here. If we do it in a balanced way, the results improve without anybody feeling any negative impact of that. And you're nodding your head. You're comfortable with all that?
I'm comfortable with the majority of that. One of my concerns is that the residents in this community pay a pretty decent CDD fee. And part of that is to see some results. They don't necessarily notice the extra fish in the pond or something. This is tangible to many of them. Coming here, having a great event. The Sunday brunch has been one of the largest talking points for the residents. I just had a former board member come to me and say that a relative was coming, and the first thing they said is, do we still get the brunch? Do we still get the brunch? And that's what you want as a talking point. But there are times where costs are going to have to go up in some places. Some of the things have doubled in price, and hopefully they'll level off and come back down. But we do have to be very careful with not going too high, because there's competition out there, but not being so cheap that, yeah, the subsidy next year is going up $100,000. So it's got to be that balance and that overall thing. I agree.
We're very desirous of the board's feeling about the issue of the subsidy in theory or as a concept, besides the specific numbers. And another way to say this, without getting into the weeds about a buffet and how much to charge for a buffet, another way to say this, we mentioned in the, I think the report itself, as well as the summary, if this is truly a club operation, a club environment, a club community, and if there's no food and beverage minimum for every single person that belongs to the club, then you're essentially collecting that minimum through the subsidy.
Do you know a club, and you deal with hundreds of them, that either don't have a minimum or a subsidy?
It's got to be one or the other.
It's got to be one or the other. I mean, I don't know one.
So again, it's not for us to say how you should run this or how you should operate this. I would just say that as a management team in support of the on-site team, we're fully cognizant of the dynamics and the challenges, but we're just always going to strive for excellence and including optimizing your financial results. So if it was 328 budget this year and it was budgeted below 300 next year, you reminded me, maybe a year from now, we're talking about in next year's budget it being closer to 250 or 225, and we're always going to try to keep on improving that. Okay. That's where we are today. We might find out more. The other thing I was going to suggest real quickly is, we're ready to look at the other part and try to wrap this up. We are within a few weeks of closing out the fiscal year, right?
Yes.
I would suggest you give us a chance to really comb through the financial results for the full 12 months. Issue some type of an overview or report of the financial results for your agenda packet. If you're going to have 2 meetings in October, give us 30 days to close that out and get it in the second October meeting. Otherwise, let's talk about it at the first November meeting, so that the 4 of you and potentially a new supervisor has an updated, fresh perspective on your financial results for 12 months, particularly as it relates to what we do. Not the whole, that's her job or somebody else's job to look at the whole thing. Does that sound good to the 4 of you?
Sounds very good.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Do you have any strong numbers about lunch? I hear on and off about the validity, I guess, of us serving lunch.
You did bring that question up when I spoke with you during the writing of our report, so I'm not surprised to hear you ask that, but I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but we can make sure we have those in terms of looking at the full 12 months. I can tell you real quickly that the results that I just got for 10 months, our food and beverage revenue is about 92,000 below budget. The food and beverage revenue year to date is about 92,000 below budget, probably primarily because of COVID, right? So that's probably gonna, that lost revenue compared to budget is gonna impact the overall subsidy for the 12 months. But I'm hesitant to start getting into specifics until we can really look at the full 12 months. Then we'll give you a good overview and a look at what happened for the last 12 months.
Thank you.
I think that's it for our particular report. I just want to come back to your other thing that was produced 8 years ago real quickly, the other document.
It's going to be in the board packet going forward.
That's up to I think your district manager. That's not up to us, I don't think. Page 4, there's 6 specific points on their strategic plan. Page 4 starts to talk about the River Club. Number 3 says, maintain and enhance the River Club. There's some specific initiatives listed then that probably are not all that relevant today. But, the issue of maintenance of the grounds, the building, those are always day-to-day, items for our staff. So we're always going to be dealing with that. And sometimes you raise questions during your board meeting about some of those matters. So it's good to sort of refresh your mind of what some of the issues were 8 years ago. And maybe there needs to be a high-level look at what, a plan is for dealing with some of those issues going forward for the next 12 months. If you go to the next page, the top of that, number 4, starts to talk about the term. The word lifestyle is right in there. Provide our resident, non-resident members and their guests with the resort lifestyle programs, activities, and functions that best suit the community's needs. So they were thinking about this 8 years ago. It's not like we came up with something or Carl came up with something and talked with us that nobody else has been talking about. So there's always a need to try to make this the very best it could be in terms of being a vibrant, dynamic, active community. That's great. And then the one below that starts to talk about the financial issue. Ensure that Venetian CDD funds and operations are managed and administered in an efficient, effective, and economical manner. It doesn't try to say whether there should be a subsidy or how much. It just says it needs to be efficient, effective, and economical. And we share that perspective as a management company. So it's good to sort of refresh your memory on some of that if you haven't looked at that. And then in terms of what you want to do going forward, that's up to the 4 or 5 of you, how you want to utilize this, not utilize this. But I thought at least call your attention to 3 of the items that I saw that do specifically relate to our report.
Anyone else have any questions, comments, or?
That's all I had.
Anything for Rudy or for Roy?
While you're thinking of them, if you have any, Rudy never had a chance to get the microphone from me. So Rudy, is there anything you'd like to add that I overlooked?
No, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I think you covered the basis. At this particular phase, we're really focused on the HR component right now. Certainly, there's a lot of learning and development taking place at this time. But most importantly, we've got to set expectations that are aligned with the management team here and Team Vesta. And at the same time, try to improve the quality of supervision across the every channel and every amenity that we manage. We're striving for excellence across every channel. So the quality of supervision in each area is a key component. And we believe that if we're paying attention and we're listening to members and their concerns, and certainly the survey will provide a benchmark on some opportunities that we really need to laser focus on, we think we're headed in the right direction.
Are we good?
I want to say thank you.
Yeah, especially for the summary, really appreciate that.
So what are we going to do?
I think the board ought to decide whether you want to update the other document that has very little anything to do with us. We've already committed to giving you a financial report, potentially by the end of October or early November meeting. And then, I'll go back real quickly. That issue of the performance reviews, we really would prefer not to make that public record.
Shouldn't be.
Right.
That's
I don't know.
personnel.
Andy may say, well, but.
Well, it is.
It
public
is.
record.
But I don't intend to put it in the agenda pack.
Right, there's a difference between it's a public record versus we're splashing it all over the place.
Right. So, so that's happening behind the scenes, and to the extent any of it's relevant, the first thing we would do is work with the liaison for our contract, which is your chair, and then we go from there. But just know we're working on it.
Well, and then the surveys, that's,
And the survey would be.
I think there's
one
a
of the
big
other key
support for
takeaways.
that, isn't there?
Absolutely. We already told you, we'd share the results of that with you by the end of October or the November meeting as well. Okay?
Will we see that survey before it goes out?
Oh, yeah, we would at least work with the chair. We obviously can't violate sunshine law by having everybody, so we'll have to figure out with district council and your chair how to create all that. But we've
Great.
done that many other places over the years with CDDs. Are we good for now? I don't mean to cut off any
No.
questions.
Good.
It's warm, it's hot. I wish I'd wear shorts and flip-flops like some of the people here. But, happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. We've never seen as much of our management company as we have since Vesta has come on board.
Well, we almost ruined the honeymoon, but I think we're past.
Yes.
Couple of speed bumps.
All right, we only have 10 items left.
So what are we gonna do with the mission, vision, and values?
We need to revisit.
How about if we all take a good look at that and make our individual comments on it, and we set it on as an agenda item at some future date?
Great.
You
Okay,
might,
so everybody's got homework.
you may want to have a workshop. I mean, what I recall, this is up to you, but what I recall was when the former board that put this together, I think they had a workshop, and that's how they tackled it. It's up to you.
We could, but I think one of the first steps is to have everybody here,
Oh, of course.
the four of
They
us and
did.
ultimately the five of us, review it, put our own twists on some things, and then discuss it, maybe in a workshop setting.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so everybody's got homework just to start to read this, and we'll,
So which meeting would you like for this to be put on the agenda for?
I don't think the next meeting, because
October?
I think the October meeting, because we may have,
Do we pass
Fifth.
Wenzel's presentation for the next?
yeah,
Wenzel's presentation?
Yes,
for-
Brad
Yes.
is on the
Okay,
September
so the first meeting of October?
yeah, how about the first meeting in
Sure.
October?
Okay. I will set that workshop for the first meeting in October. So moving forward, supervisors, the next item on the agenda is the consideration of the LMP proposals, which are behind tab number 2, as well as a discussion regarding Benito and the roundabout landscaping plan and replacements. We do have representatives of LMP present.
Didn't you skip C?
Did I?
Yes.
I think she just
I
sort of
just- I
combined
just-
them,
I'm combining all of them as one. but
Oh,
yeah,
well, that's great.
I just mentioned that one. but
unless you want to go slower, Rick.
You want me to go slower?
Very slow.
Okay, so some of the proposals that we do have are behind tab number 2, as I mentioned. Brian is here, Brian is here. He's going to speak with me on the sod proposals, but Rick, I don't know if you want to start with the Benito and the roundabout landscaping plan.
And let me just add one thing to this discussion before we get further into it, which is, I know that there was some chatter in the community about what we can and can't do. And there was some discussion about how much do we have to involve the city of Venice, et cetera. And so I did a little bit of investigation, spoke with Rick Schoppacher, spoke with Roger Clark from the city of Venice as late as Friday afternoon, who had reviewed our landscape plans from the community. Rick did not have copies of them. And he informed me that as long as we are not removing trees, that he felt that there did not need to be involvement of the city of Venice. That the plans were very, I'll say nebulous in terms of just leaving the ground cover and landscaping and such to the discretion of the community. So I just wanted that as a background, since some of you may have had some discussions with neighbors in the community about that issue.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yes.
I'd like to give a little overview of where we're at with the landscape architect.
I'm sorry. They can't hear you if you don't.
Before we talk about the LMP proposals, the landscape architect, his son is in the Air Force Academy and he's in the hospital, very serious illness. And the landscape architect has been in Colorado with his son all week. So I've not had an opportunity to talk to him at all about revising his plan. So that part of this agenda I'd like to see put on next week's or our next meeting. I did go through the plan to try to find some places to possibly do some reductions, and I've got a little thing for the board members to take a look at.
Sure.
Okay. There should be one there. No, there's not enough for Denise.
Oh, okay, you don't get one. Sorry, you don't get one.
Thank you. And I don't know if we want to go through this or just keep this for the next meeting. Maybe that's.
I think it would be good for you to give the board an overview of what you
Okay.
prepared.
Basically, what I did is I went through I separated the Benito project into the west side and the east side, so we could know what we're talking about. On the west side, there are 35 existing freestanding oaks. My suggestion, the suggestion I was going to make to the landscape architect again, and have not done that on all 35 of those, where those oaks are, that we just put circles of mulch around the oaks. Fill in the existing beds with sod, which LMP had recommended in their proposal, and which the landscape architect has in some of his proposal. But in my estimation and some others, is to plant ground cover underneath a tree really makes no sense at all. With the removal of the oleanders and the shillings, you can now see the lakes and ponds on the west side. These are vistas that a lot of communities don't have, and we had hidden them behind these shrubs. So the west side would basically be mulch circles.
So from the gate to the
roundabout.
Right out
From the gate to the roundabout.
Okay.
On the west side, there are 3 beds up near Laurel Road that have magnolias and ligustrum trees in them. Those beds would have some kind of a ground cover and planting. Again, I have not talked to the architect about that, but that's what we would suggest. On the east side, when you first come in, that property is the Welcome Center. Then you go to the golf course, which we don't have any control over. There are 2 magnolia beds, ground cover. You get to the cart crossing, there's magnolia beds, and 3 magnolia beds, ground cover under those magnolia beds. Padova Way, magnolia beds, oaks with circles, magnolia beds. So it would be consistent throughout. What will be in those beds, I don't know. That would be up to the architect. There are also oaks in the buffers that are not included in this. The grass estimates in the architect plan would have to be increased because there would be more grass. There would be no ground cover on the west side except for the magnolia and ligustrum beds. Ground cover on the east side and all those other beds. Second page, the budgeted amount we have is $100,000, and then we have 19,000. That's in the reserves, and we have 19,000 left over in this year's reserve. For a total of $119,000. The SW plan initially came in at $221,000. If we remove the mulch, which is under another contract, we have an annual mulch contract, so we can save $32,000. When we remove the compost, we can save $27,000. If we remove the 27 bald head cypress trees, which we talked about a little bit, that are very ugly in the winter, we could save another, what is that? $10,000, $10,800. There's a majoral palm in the triangle coming in that doesn't, in front of the roundabout, that could be removed for now and done at a later date. That would save us another $4,000. If we remove, he has 6 ligustrum trees along with some palms in the roundabout. If we remove that, we'd save another $6,000. He has a large specimen oak tree in the middle of the roundabout. There are other options in there that could save us in the area of about $4,000. If we replace the foxtail palms, which have a lot of disease, he's got 35 foxtail palms. If we replace those with what they're called Christmas palms, we could save another $8,700. Again, none of these things have been I haven't gone through these with the architect. Ground cover, cut it in about half. If we don't do the west side, saves us about $33,000. If I add all those together, we can reduce that by about $127,000, which would leave us in the $94,000 range. The $14,000 $14,462 that he has in contingency is still in the plan because he has no money budgeted for irrigation. And we've all kind of expressed a concern that if we do this, if we do plant new plants, we're going to have irrigation. If we do the sod, we won't have to do irrigation. So we'll leave that for now. That'll help us if these bids come in higher or lower, because the landscape architect's proposed cost for sod is very low compared to what LMP's cost for sod was and what we think sod may cost. So if I run all this by the architect, I hope by the next meeting we can have a new plan that reflects at least some or all of this.
One of
Any
the things
questions?
that one of the things that I
can
might
hear you,
like
but
to
they
be considered is increasing the areas around the trees.
That's healthy for the trees.
It's healthier for the trees and it's less sod.
Right.
And overall, I think it gives a better look.
Right.
You know, the opening of everything and the views that we have now are pretty good.
No, I agree.
Anything else?
Okay, yeah, is there some urgency as it relates to planning? This is the rainy season.
It would be advantageous to get the sod in soon because they have to order the sod. If they get wet area, then they can't get the sod. So I was going to suggest that we do the west side now, that we do the sod now. But I don't have a firm price from LMP. If we want to do it, I think we'd have to put it out to bid to both LMP and any other purveyors to do the west side sod. It doesn't affect anything that the architect has done other than there would be no plantings on the west side.
Okay. So there is some urgency.
There is some urgency, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The I know there was at the last meeting, we spoke about the landscape committee, and I know Joe is away, but he's coming back at the end of the month. You know, will you be able to have an October meeting with the landscape committee?
That's scheduled for the 6th, yes. My understanding is there'll be enough for a quorum.
Okay, so I think it's important that they see.
Absolutely, but they're all gone.
Well, no, I understand that. I understand that, but you're anticipating the probability, at least, that you're going to have a meeting on the 6th.
Yes.
Okay.
But if we wait to
do anything until the landscape committee sees it, then we won't see it until the middle of October. It's not going to get done until November or December or whatever. We have a tendency to kick things down the road, and maybe that's the right thing to do. I don't know.
What's does the committee like the openness and is there a feeling?
Yes.
They do like it?
Yes. If you remember, there was a committee that recommended that we tear out all the
Okay.
all what we tore out.
So if we said yes today, and then you went to the committee on the 6th and said, look, because of timelines, because we think we know what you're feeling, we went ahead with this to get this thing going. We hope you're okay. Is that going to cause a problem with them? Well,
I'm not comfortable there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that because the committee recommends we decide.
Right. No, I understand.
Okay, so in this case, we would be deciding before the committee recommends.
I'm going to suggest that if you haven't done it already, that all this information be sent to all the committee members to give them an opportunity to review it.
I wanted to show it to you first.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Review it before October 6th. This way they come in with knowledge because you've given them a lot of information and prices and everything else. So I think they should have an opportunity to take a look at it. They're prepared. It's one of the agenda items for that October meeting.
Okay, so we're not going to do anything. We're going to kick it down the road.
I'm not comfortable in doing anything with it today. That's me. I'm one of four. I'm not comfortable in doing anything with it today without the committee seeing it because we've
gotten
in that situation before, and I really don't want to go there again.
What are your feelings? What are your feelings, Rick? What would you like us to do?
Well, what I would have liked to have been able to sit down with the landscape committee and do this. I would like to have been able to sit down with the architect and do this. I've not had that opportunity, so.
All right, so let me ask, when will it come back here?
3 weeks.
What's it, October what?
First October meeting.
Well, which is what? What's the October meeting?
It's gonna be the second Monday of the month.
So.
Probably be the 13th, maybe?
13th is a Monday.
Yeah.
13th is a Monday.
So you'd be meeting on the 6th, you come back on the 13th.
Okay.
So it's a
We're
month
also
from
in the
now.
new fiscal year then, and there's.
It's fine, leaves us another month with it sitting the way it is. But I'm afraid we may lose the window on getting the grass. Bill, can you talk to that at all?
Well, certainly timing is everything here. Availability is really crucial with all the building going on, and the weather patterns that we're having. Without a decision today, we could be another month and a half out with getting the product. It's the reality of it.
Yeah.
My thoughts are still, let's deal with this on the 13th of October. Let the committee take a look at it. And we're going to try to minimize the amount of sod anyway. We have numbers in there that are somewhat staggering in terms of sod that was suggested. If you read Michael Wendroff's Red Tide article, speaking to less sod and less fertilizer and less runoff, that makes a lot of sense to me. So I'd like the committee to take a look at using things other than sod. Ground cover, I don't even know what it is that I have in front of our house that the deer will not eat. And it looks pretty good. It's a purpley greenish thing. It grows about 8 inches high. I could find out what it is, but the deer will not eat it. They'll dine on everything else in front of my house, but they won't eat that.
Do you want plantings underneath oak trees?
No.
Is that what you're looking for?
No, no. Those other areas
Do you want to replant, or, I'm just asking, I'm trying to, if I don't understand, then I can't present it to anybody.
My thought is in some of those areas that are being thought of, let's sod everything over, that maybe some low ground cover might be a better choice.
And why would that be a better choice?
Because of the less watering involved?
Not less water.
I don't know.
You're going to put in new plants, you're going to have to put in irrigation. They're not just going to grow just because you put them in. The sod will be covered by the existing sprinklers. If we put in ground cover, or palms or whatever. If we recreate the beds that we've removed, then we have to irrigate them. Then we have to trim them. Then, which is fine. If that's what this board wants.
I'll just say that somebody's going to have to come and take a look and see what they are. The things that were planted in front of my house get watered once a week. And they have created almost a full bed. And again, the deer do not eat it. That's, I would like to see less grass. That's my own personal opinion.
When do you expect the landscape architect to be back? He's got an
We don't know.
It's so hard to tell. He's not coming back until his son's situation is.
No, rightly so.
And I asked him about somebody else in the office, but it's really his plan. So, I'm kind of dead in the water with that.
You can't break any of this out
Okay,
today?
Well, we could.
Let me see if there's a compromise here.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe we can break something out.
If we authorize Mr. McCaffrey to go forward with the caveat that he individually talks to the committee members, because you can do that. He can have a one-on-one conversation with each of the committee members to make sure they're okay with this without talking to the big group.
Well, he can, but also the committee cannot.
They can't make the decision.
They can't use Rick as a go-between to make a decision.
Okay.
Outside the sunshine.
Thank you.
Once again, we can't break some of this out for action today. Rick?
I think we can, but I know Rich is certainly against that.
You're concerned because we're obviating the committee.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't think we should do that. And I think that 3 weeks It may delay us further, but you know what? I think we're doing the right thing by waiting to see what the committee has to say.
And what if I don't have a quorum for the October 6th meeting? The landscape committee is down to 4.
Well, you've advertised for a new member.
The landscape
And-
committee currently is 4.
Mhm.
We can't have, and we won't have a new member until our next meeting at the very earliest.
Okay.
You could have a workshop, but you would not be able to make
I
any
can't-
decisions.
No, you could, what's the closing date for people who want to apply for the landscape committee?
I'm not sure what date, Keith, you included.
30th of this month. So that's another 2 weeks.
You can't change the date,
How about if we change that?
and then you can appoint someone at the next meeting.
I'd like to be able to appoint somebody at the meeting on the 27th, September 27th.
You can, I mean, Keith can send a correction that, the resumes are due sooner, we'll select a date, and you could make a decision, put it on the September 27th agenda.
That creates a much better chance of a quorum.
Okay, I'd like to pull that date, make that date sooner. So the 27th is a Monday. How about if we go with the Wednesday before that, or the Thursday before that at the latest?
It'll be on the agenda, the resumes don't have to go on the agenda, I can circulate them to everyone.
But we gotta move the deadline for the.
But the
Yeah, move the
deadline, I'll
deadline.
move it up.
Yeah. So that we can make an appointment on that day.
So what do you want to put in, no later than the 17th? That's Friday, this Friday.
The Wednesday before, which is the 22nd.
Okay. I don't know, I guess I'm having a little difficulty. We all like the openness. If the landscape committee comes back and says, no, put a bunch of plantings under there, I don't think we're gonna buy it.
No.
So.
But at least they have their input, they have their say. And I think it's important that they have their say.
Well, that's Rich's opinion. We can, the other 3. we can
Ultimately, it's
make
going to be
an
this board that makes the decision. And I totally understand that the landscape committee input is important, but you know, I just hate to see us lose. We may be losing a window. I don't know. I hate to see it look like it's gonna look for another.
Okay.
It'll be a month.
You know what?
Or
Nobody's
more.
complaining how it looks. All they're doing, all they're saying is positive things. It's opened it up or whatever. They're really not looking down at the ground as
Make
much.
a motion.
So then why are we inactive?
Make
If
a
it's-
motion. If you make a motion, see what happens.
I make a motion, we go ahead and elicit bids for the sodding of the west side of Veneto from the roundabout to the entrance,
Well, that-
excluding the 3 beds up at the front that have magnolias and ligustrums in them.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Now, that's a whole different thing than what I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying we have to start planting this stuff. Now you're saying solicit bids. I have no problem.
Well,
with soliciting bids.
we're not gonna spend $20,000-$30,000 without getting bids for it.
This is true.
I wouldn't think.
That,
I mean, maybe you want to, I don't know. That's a whole nother issue.
that certainly wasn't my understanding of where you were going. I thought you were talking about, let's approve this stuff and let's get it done. You're talking about, let's get more numbers in?
No.
What are you
No, get
saying?
numbers in and we'll take the lowest, and at the next meeting, we can say LNP gets the job, MRT gets the job, whoever. I think we're missing something here, Rich.
Well, then I understand what you're saying now, but that still leaves the
whole
landscape-
left side, the whole east side still needs to be
Still
decided. The
It still
ligustrum
leaves the
beds need
landscape
to be
committee.
Still
decided.
doesn't solve your problem.
Doesn't solve my problem,
Right.
because it
Still
still
doesn't
leaves the
solve it.
landscaping committee out of this entirely.
Yes,
And I don't like that.
okay, I understand that. And they'll be mad at me probably, and I think I can handle it.
Okay.
Well,
And maybe they won't. In my discussions with the 2 members that I've been able to contact,
yeah.
they both like the open plot. Both of them are gone. They're not here. They haven't seen it since it was torn out. And I can't speak for, I shouldn't say anything about what they think. in our conversations, they were for the open plan to begin with. But
That's
that's not a
exactly-
committee vote, that's just a.
That's exactly my point. You can't speak for them. And I think they should have their voice.
All right, before we vote on this.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit more about the window of opportunity. You put it out to bid, we get the bids, we're gonna authorize somebody to accept the lowest bid.
Right.
When can all that happen by? About?
That wasn't part of the motion.
No,
Well,
right,
he's
it was
gonna-
just getting bids.
We're just getting bids, that's all the motion was.
Well, that was not, I don't think that was.
Yeah, I think I phrased that incorrectly.
Yeah,
To
that
do
was
the
my
work. We gotta get the bids before
Right.
you do the work.
If
If I spoke wrong, I apologize.
If it's get the bids, I have no problem with that. If it's get the bids and then select the vendor and do it, I have a problem with that.
At that point, we can have this
Okay.
discussion again,
Okay.
hopefully at the next meeting, if we get on, can we get the bids in 2 weeks, Keith?
All right,
So
so
let me rephrase,
Let's hear, go ahead, go.
I have to take my second.
Well,
off.
wait, why don't we have, if we could, Belinda
We have a
repeat the
motion and a
motion
second.
and see if that's what you've heard or if it needs to be changed.
Okay, the motion was for staff to get bids for the west side of Benito, from the entrance all the way to the roundabout for sod installation.
okay.
Solicit bids, that's all it
Yeah.
That's
says.
all. it says.
Yes.
There's no indication of any work being done or any vendor being selected, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
okay, and then at the next meeting, we could either accept or reject these.
All right, then we can push it down the road again,
Okay.
as
All
is our
All right.
style, but that's
And
fine.
the bidding process is about 2 weeks by the time we get it out.
Well, this isn't, we don't have to do a formal
It's not a
RFP
formal-
process. This is just
Just go
calling a
after
couple
them.
companies.
Yeah, this is not the huge.
Maybe getting John's help, whatever.
So that'll bring us to the
Getting
next
some
meeting.
proposals.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
We gotta, okay. I could call the vote, please.
Any further discussion?
Again, just to assure that I know exactly what we're doing here, all we're doing is soliciting the ground, we're not hiring a vendor, we're
Correct.
just getting information.
Correct, on the
Correct.
west side.
And we're doing it for one side, the west side
West side.
Fine,
only, right?
fine.
Because then okay, Marvin.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right.
The second part of all this, all of the bids that LNP has here that we're gonna look at are all for all of Veneto and the whole 9 yards, which we're not ready to do at this point.
Okay, so we're gonna table that.
So we'll table those.
So those will be tabled. I'd like to jump to the sod proposals if we can, supervisors. I did, have a conversation with Rick about some of these, proposals for sod because they total about $8,000. And I do have some concerns about some of the areas, and I did have a conversation with John and with Brian. Brian, I don't know if you want to chime in on this.
Hello, Board. I spoke with
Why
John.
don't you come on up?
Thank you. Hello, Board. I spoke with John Tobar this morning. He had a couple of concerns about some of the areas I'd requested a proposal for sod on. I didn't know the history of the underlying conditions there. I spoke with Chris from LMP. He doesn't have any problems with this either. Next week on our inspection, we want to go check some of those areas in detail, do a few tests, make sure that there's no underlying issues under those areas that would cause the sod to die off again if we install it in those areas right around where the golf club is. Just as a precaution, I wasn't aware of it, and I apologize for not knowing that history ahead of time. So I just asked if we could table those sod proposals until.
The ones that you have here.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not feel comfortable approving them. I think our best bet right now is to hold off until next week's inspection so that these areas can be reviewed. And then Brian will report back with John.
Okay.
And I have had a conversation. I've had a conversation with Bill about when proposals are made, it needs to be more specific. You can't just tell us, replace a foxtail. We need to know where that foxtail is. You can't say on the right side. Is that right side going out or right side coming in? You know, let's get more specific on these proposals and who's approving these proposals.
Yes, sir.
You know, we want to make it as efficient as possible. I think there's partly is because you have an inspection team.
We have John Tolberg who does inspections. Then we have requests that come from board members, requests that come from the landscaping committee. And, this is our community money. We need to spend it wisely.
Correct.
And so we need your help to do that.
I sure will.
Okay.
John will be, we're channeling everything through John on my end of it from now on.
Yeah.
So
But he can't spend our community money. So,
No, I
yeah,
understand.
exactly. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're gonna
Okay.
table these, until the next meeting, and we'll report back.
Okay.
So the next item on the agenda is item number 4E, which is the consideration of the tennis fencing proposal.
Oh, boy.
This is behind tab number 3. Denise, do you want to give the board an overview on this? I know you sent the board a summary as well via email.
Yes, the summary came from Jill Pizarnik. We had originally a full replacement quote and a repair quote. So I called Ritzman because USA Fence said we will not put our name on the repair because it will be incomplete, and within a year, the other part of the fence will start deteriorating. So they gave the full quote. Their full quote was $32,314 for replacing all of the chain link. And it also added on a post where they would be adding this 3-foot fence by the bleachers off of number 6. And they would be putting tension wire at the bottom instead of the bottom rails. He said the bottom rails was overkill. You really don't need it because now the way they do the wires, they put it in at the beginning. It will be totally taut. The tension wires were put in after the fact, after they started curling. He said at that point it was too late. He also indicated that the fencing now that they make is a better quality fence than 18 years ago, and it shouldn't do this in this amount of time. They should have a little stronger life without being so dramatically stretched and curling. I called Ritzman to get their full replacement quote with wires also, because I wanted it to be an apples for apples quote. He sent back the quote for $47,800. It was a couple of feet difference on the chain link, but it's pretty much all the chain link, whatever it is, 10 foot high. And then it also would be replacing, each of them would be replacing those inner 3-foot ones that separate all the cords. He threw on the existing poles, painting and cleaning them, all the tennis poles, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of them, to do that before the new fence goes back up. And his quote was $9,700. I immediately called USA Fence and asked them, can you give me a quote for that so that we would know how much you would charge to do it. He gave me a verbal quote on that. And the verbal quote, he said, would be between $9,000 and $10,000 to do the painting of all the poles. He said if we did it ourselves, the paint, the cleaning supplies would be about $500. I talked to my maintenance guy and he said, no, it wouldn't work because literally it would be a 1-man or 2-man job. Whoever gets the bid will be standing there waiting to put it on. Oh, sorry, we got one more fence, but we're painting while it just wouldn't work. It has to be by the company who's doing the fencing to get that done. Went out and looked at it. One of the committee members went out and looked at it, and they're very faded. There's some rust at the bottom, but they do look bad. And when you get this new shiny fence on there, they're going to look worse. So it was a recommendation to get that painted as well as fenced. The whole adage, if you're going to do it right. There is a decent amount of money in the reserves, but again, the reserve money was for the fence replacement, including the fence poles. The poles are still in great shape. They've gone and they've tried to even budge, nothing budges. So the poles, I asked one and he said the poles would have another 10, 15 years minimum in them, unless something catastrophic happened. So the quotes here for the fence, there's more than enough money in the reserves for that. And I will be talking to the reserve committee about changing the reserve. The reserve needs to have two options. One, chain link every 15 years, then chain link and poles every 30 years. So you'd be doing the chain link twice, the poles once, chain link twice, poles once. Because to do them together, if we were to do these poles, it'd be a waste. You'd get some more years out of it.
Can I interject? The replacement is not due till 2025, so I want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Right.
You don't have the total amount that's in the reserve available to you because it's not slated for 2025.
Yeah,
But you do
we're
have
5
funds.
years ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
Again,
You do have funds.
yeah, again, that 5 years was for the poles and everything. That's why. And the chain link and the poles do not have the same life. So it was an error putting it in this way when the reserves were done. They should have done the chain link as a totally separate thing than the poles. It shouldn't have been just one quote.
Why do we keep adding this fence and gate by the bleachers? What,
The fence and gate by the bleachers, we've had requests over and over and over. When you're playing on 6, your ball is always rolling under the bleachers. Some of the complaints.
who makes that request? The committee says they don't want it, that they don't.
I don't
Have I read it
really
right?
remember the committee even voting on that,
Well-
but the committee is 5 people or 7.
Well,
But we have had requests over and over from players saying, we right now have this fake little plastic thing up there to keep the balls from rolling out. Twofold there. One, when it would roll out under the bleachers, that clay would collect it. If it had rained that morning or the night before, that clay is still wet, and so pretty much ruins your ball when it rolls into that. The other thing is they have to go get the ball. And there's no other area except on 4 that has that, where that ball rolls over. They're asking for a gate in the back so that when they hit the ball 10 feet over, that they can go get it. Which that doesn't happen nearly as much as it going out into that area. And the balls do go out a lot. So
Mr. Chair.
if you took a quote with the tennis players, they would want that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would ask that we have, give time for the chair of the Rackets Sports Committee to speak on that particular issue. She's an active participant in tennis out there, and she's here, as well as Jill Persari, to talk specifically about we don't need that particular gate or fencing. Do you mind?
Not at all.
Phil?
I'm happy.
Pat, come on up, Pat. And Pat plays every day.
You ought to see her house.
Guilty as charged. The committee nor the residents, the problem we have with Court 6 is that the drainage and/or the angling of the court toward the bleachers needs to be corrected. We have the same open space on Court 4, but that court drains correctly. It doesn't, the water hits the court and it has no place to go. So it rolls out to the open area under the bleachers, and it brings the hard-true material with it, which forms mud. So it makes a mess. We do not have that problem on Court 4.
Is that rainwater or the water coming up for the courts?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
It's a combination of both. And that's been a problem that started sometime after January when Ritzman was here taking care of courts 5 and court 6. We never had that problem before. If the drainage is corrected, or the other project that Denise is talking to Rick Shopaker about, which is running a drain in front of the bleacher area, so when we have an excess of water, whatever the cause is, we hope that when Ritzman comes in September, we'll be able to figure out exactly what the cause is and make it stop happening. That should take care of it. The plastic fence that's there will certainly keep the ball from rolling under the bleachers if the ball goes along the ground. But if the ball goes over the fence, it's still going over the bleachers and into the mud. The problem is fix the mud. You don't need a fence. We don't need a fence and a gate there. We need to fix the mud. That is what really needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Any questions?
So that would reduce the price.
Yes.
Can we ask the tennis pro what his thoughts are, or the comments? Because he's the one who receives the comments. They don't necessarily come to me.
What's your thought, Charlie?
Yeah, come on.
Denise, is this proposal for all the fencing or just all the north?
No.
So all the good fencing is going with the bad fencing?
The repair for Ritzman was for only, I believe it was 4 or 6 sections.
Well, initially,
Yeah, that was the repair that he did. And then it was for 6 sections. So now these 2 new quotes are for the whole thing.
Okay.
And
Why?
the little ones,
why are we doing it all?
because the ones that are still okay today, in a year or 2, they're not going to be okay. Then we're going to be right back here with getting the fence done. And this is something that should be done every 15 years. And you don't want to piecemeal it. You don't want to piecemeal it.
Is this for aesthetic reasons? That you
No.
want it all to look the same?
All would be, doing the others would be part of aesthetics. But again, in 1, 2, 3 years, the rest of the fence that's not bad will be bad. The others is aesthetics and safety. They're so thorough now.
Nobody has any problem with the safety issue
Right.
behind, in the back of the courts. I think
Well,
we talked about that for
yeah.
4 months, 5 months now.
Well, that's like saying, like I said, the fence is 17 years old. It's going to go bad, the part that still looks okay. So do we come back to this 2 years from now and do the
Yes.
other half?
Well,
Why not get it all done, and then it all in 15 years needs to be again, instead of 15 years this, 17 years that, and then we're going to be piecemealing it from now until eternity.
I don't see the logic.
Didn't one of the fence guys say he would?
He won't put his name on it, so it will be Ritzman, because he said this is not the way to go. We actually had several other companies that, nope, we're not doing a repair quote. It's not on this, it's all or none. And they wouldn't do it. They said it's not how it's done.
I think we're being held hostage here.
Yes.
Charlie, what's your thought?
Our fence is in terrible condition.
The entire thing or just that one
The
area?
entire fence. I mean, you maybe have 30% of the fence that's in good shape. If you go to any club in the area, we probably have the worst fence in town. It's in horrible condition. There's holes in the fence. It's curling up. I'm actually pleased that we don't have to do the entire thing. We can save some money by just putting the fencing in instead of the poles. So that was good news. As far as drainage goes, the courts are draining the proper way. Court 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 drain to the back towards the pond and the condos. Court 5 and 6 always have drained towards the bleacher area. That's why we put the grates in, because back when it was, before those grates were in, it was starting, the water after rain was sitting on the court. If the water's not sitting on the court, it's draining properly. Could we use a grate there? Yes. Rick and I talked afterwards because I was here when he put it in. It was a mistake not putting it in at that time. He said, we talked about it, I don't even remember, that it was the light poles that we didn't want to deal with at the time. That's quite expensive to do. It would be the fix, no doubt. For years, I've had complaints about that, and originally, those fences were high fences. I have photos of them from back in the day. I came in because there was no place to sit. We put in slabs, we put in the low fences. Probably should have put in that continuous fence there too. You go to most clubs, they have a continuous fence with a little gate where you can get in and out of. I've had requests for years to put a gate in the back of court, like Denise was saying, in back of court 3, just so we can go get the ball when it goes over the fence. That probably happens once a month, twice a month maybe. Balls rolling off the court on court 4 and 6 are happening all the time. Now we compromised to not put it on 4 to save a little money. The fence there, if you did put the grate in, that will help. That's why we have the fence now. Ladies and gentlemen that were playing on that court were very irritated after a heavy rain when that happens. It doesn't happen after a light rain. It happens after a pretty good sized rain, which we get a lot of. Balls rolling over there and being a mess, they were mad. I would hand out a can of balls to them many times when they bring their balls in, irritated about it. So
that's my answers to your questions. If you have anything else, I'd be more happy to answer.
Thank you, Charlie.
So yes or no on the gate?
Yes on the gate, yes on the fence. We can survive without Court 4, although I prefer to put one there too. I have people in the weeds, in the bushes, looking for their balls when they go out there. You know, not necessarily, I think it's only $1,600, so it's not like it's a, you know, if it was 1,000, 5,000, I would.
It all adds up.
Of course it does.
Well, the gentleman.
But this is gonna be done in 5 years anyway, where you're gonna do everything for $70,000, so.
The gentleman that sat with the committee last week advocated for the fence.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did not?
No.
I thought he did.
No, he said no, that's what he said this morning, don't need it. We're talking about replacing the whole fence.
Right.
Yes, the committee, we had a workshop and we did not have a quorum, so we just did a workshop. We could not vote on this, but each person voiced that they felt it should be done correctly with all of it, even the two that were on the phone. So we could not do a recommendation from the committee, but it was a consensus that everybody felt it should be completely finished, refinished.
I think it's nice to just replace the entire thing. I think that's nice. To me, it's kind of like I have a scratch on the fender, let's paint the whole car. As I said before, I think we're being held hostage here. We have one section. Now, we can look 5 years down the road and this may happen and that may happen, and then maybe it won't. We have kicked this around, talking about kicking the can down the street. We have kicked this around, I can't tell you how many times. I've said, let's get a repair done. Suggested, you got another fence company from Roy. You know, maybe something as simple as Angie's List. Get somebody out here to repair the fence. We don't need to, I don't think we need to spend huge amounts of money when we're looking at something that can be fixed. And I still haven't gotten a satisfactory number on fixing. It's all, let's tear it down and let's replace.
And Richmond gave us a repair quote of $27,800.
Right.
That's not the painting or anything, that's just doing those 6 sections.
Mhm.
And USA Fence gave us a quote of $32,000 for all of it. So we're dealing with less than $5,000 to do all of it. Fiscally responsible would be to do it all with the quote for $32,000. That would be no extra little bleacher thing. That would be no gate in the back. It would be just doing all the mesh and getting it done right.
Didn't you say that, did I mishear? I thought you said Ritzman would be the way to go. Because I clearly see that USA Fence is at
No, that you might,
32.3.
If you only wanted to do a repair, I
if
think
you want to do a
USA said they
repair,
would
it's
not
Richmond,
do a
because they're the only
repair.
ones who will do it. We've called every other company, they won't. So if you want the repair, it's almost $28,000.
Right.
And for $5,000 more, you can get USA Fence to do the whole thing.
Right.
So that's, and again, the little fence thing, if you all don't want to spend the money on it, that's your decision. The gate in the back, people have wanted it. It's less use than the other thing would be, but that it actually would help us because every time we have to go check the water, we have to go around the whole thing. I think the staff would use it as much as the tennis players. So again, that was a separate quote of $1,600. That's not huge for a fence in the back between 3 and 4, 2 and 3, wherever we decided to put it. There was a separate quote for the painting. That would be a decision. If the posts are going to be replaced in 5 or 10 years, do you really want to spend the money on painting them? Again, your choice.
So you're thinking in 5 or 10 years we'll replace the post, but with our new fencing on it? That doesn't make any sense.
The guy said it's going to last much more than that. That 25-year number that we had was too late for the fence and too early for the posts. When the reserve committee gets into redoing, and they have somebody come out, they can tell you you've got 10 years, 15, whatever they've got, and that's when it should be done.
Denise, I'm wondering why you're so involved in this, and wouldn't this be Charlie's responsibility to do all
We're both
this?
involved in it, and I sit on the facility committee, so I'm the one who talks with the facility committee too. So any replacement I'm involved in some aspect, if it goes through the facility committee.
Well, I agree with Rich. I think we're being held hostage here, but.
Well, since we're talking about the facilities committee, why don't we let the chair talk, speak?
I'm fine with
Well,
that. I mean, we
come
recommend
on
to
up,
replace the
Jill.
fence.
Jill, what
We
are
did
your
recommend
thoughts,
that.
Jill?
Yeah, no, we didn't have a quorum. And I'm gonna talk about that here, but let her come up and speak.
Is the mic still up there?
Yeah, it's, I gotta, so, yeah, I'm gonna have to bolt in about 5 minutes because I have a doctor's appointment. Yeah, I think what I would say for starters is, I don't know, Rich, if you've actually looked at the fence, if you actually walked out there and looked at the fence, both of you, Rich and Rick.
No, I
It's
have
in
not. I've only looked at
deplorable
an $11,000 quote that became 27.
Well, so.
That I looked at.
But what I would say is I think it's critical to go out and look at it. When Steve and I went out before the last board meeting, my sense, although obviously I can't read your mind, Steve, was I think you had your eyes opened.
Yeah.
When you looked at the fence, because all the little links at the bottoms, because of the age, they've broken off, they're rusted, they're pointy at the bottoms. At the halfway fences that divide up the individual courts, they're actually dangerous because if you reach over to get a ball, rather than going all the way around it, you're gonna get a pop right in here. I think that we really need to look at this. It hasn't been 3 or 4 months that it was been taken around. It's 2 years that we've been looking at this. So I would encourage you, on the one hand, I totally respect, the need for you to feel comfortable if we're spending the money. And if it takes another meeting or so for you to go out and have a look at the fencing, I certainly would endorse that because I also think we have more work to do when it comes to the quotes, as Denise and also Jack pointed out. But I think the fence needs to be replaced.
And that was the feeling of the facilities committee.
Yeah, well, we batted around. We can patch it. I mean, there is a company that's willing to repair some of it. Does that make sense at this point? I think we're wasting money, quite honestly. Okay. Now the poles, we did go round and round on the poles, and if we're gonna do this, I do think we should paint the poles.
Yeah, I agree. And let me just point one more thing. I think when we've talked about the fencing in the past, I think we haven't brought into the fact that there is some money in reserves. What I did was I looked at when it was due, I think in 2025 or 2026, and then calculated what the final cost number was, which I think was 75,268, 75,300, 75,300, and then back calculated what we'd have taking access to it 5 years early would be something in the neighborhood of 60. I don't know if that's the way it's really done in the world of reserves, but my guess was that we have enough in reserves to cover it.
Do you know what the number is in reserves on this?
She just actually did give a correct overview on it.
Okay.
So at replacement in 2025, actually, it's 75,300.
Yes.
Right.
So that's correct.
The money's there.
The money is there.
So
You don't have 75,000 right now,
That's
but you do have the funds to replace it if need be.
But let's back up a minute. Denise and Joe, to replace all the fence what's the best quote now? It's USA's.
USA.
Is the 32,000.
32,314.
Hang on a minute. 32,000 gets us the fence replaced. It doesn't get us the poles painted.
That's another maybe 10 grand.
Yes.
Denise
Okay.
said.
Correct.
I think we're making a huge mistake if we don't paint those poles. Because that's integral to the fence. And we don't want a sore thumb here.
Agreed.
It'd be about 42,000.
Okay, now what if we back out the gate? I mean,
1,600.
how much is the gate?
1,600.
1,600.
Well, hang
Well,
on. No,
no.
hang on.
That's
Yeah.
a separate, that's not it.
The gate is an option under USA Fence, but what we can back out of the USA Fence quote is this court 6 fence with the little walking gate that I calculate is going to be between $2,500 and $3,000 reduction of the $32,000 quote if we don't put the unneeded fence at the north side of court 6.
The unneeded fence or the unneeded gate?
The unneeded fence and gate.
gate.
The gate isn't in here.
So you're
the gate would
anticipating
be-
that to be between 25 and 3?
That's
25
right,
foot.
that's this 20-foot section. If you look at the top right-hand corner of the USA fence quote, 4 or 5 lines down, there are 3 items that relate to this long 3-foot thing in front of the bleachers to stop the balls, which to Pat's point wouldn't stop balls anyway.
All right, Charlie, you busted back there. Are we making a mistake not putting that gate in there?
If we're not putting the gate in there and get rid of the chicken wire fence I have, then we have to spend the $7,000 on the grate.
It's not $7,000, because if half of that quote was for watering sod, and Jack Challoner and I talked about it, we could bring in the drainage
Wait a minute,
code.
That quote's 10 years old.
Yeah,
He said
wait a
that was
minute.
a guess.
Let's make sure we all understand. Come up here, Charlie, please. Well, let's make sure we all understand what we're talking about,
Great.
because we're starting to mix some stuff up here. Joe, don't go anyplace. What's this $7,000?
That's what I heard Rick say that it was $7,000 for the grate.
Yeah.
That was accurate.
Yeah, 3,000 of that is for watering sod.
Right, because you're gonna have to tear up the entire
Yeah.
sodding area to put
But I
the
asked him, I said,
the
so,
piping underneath.
yeah, we're talking 7,000. He said, no, that was the quote from the last time we did that. He said, I'd have to go out and get bids for it. He said, that's not a bid he got. That was a guesstimate.
And
for
I
what
actually
he
remember
paid last time.
the original thing 8 years ago was $10,000.
Yeah, so that was a
But-
guesstimate. And he said he'll get quotes for
But
us.
we're saying we don't need to do that? Or not? I mean, he talked about it this morning.
If we're gonna do that, we can avoid the gate. If we're not, see, I was under the impression it was $7,000 and.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I think, Richmond is gonna come to do our courts anyway. Let's get Richmond in here and ask him, because he's the expert, why is it draining that way?
It's supposed to drain that way.
It is,
It drains, why do we have the grates over there on court 5?
the grates are full, and they've been full for months.
Right, because all the water's going into those grates. That's
And
why
the grates need to be shoveled out.
They were 2 weeks ago.
Oh, no.
Hey,
Well, we're getting
whoa,
into-
Whoa.
I'll have to start taking pictures of Jake every time he.
Wait a minute, folks.
Either way, the water, if there's stuff in there, they are draining properly. Otherwise, there'd be puddles sitting outside the fence gateway every time.
Well, the engineer this morning talked about still working on those grates. He talked about that.
But he's talking about the new grate, not the one we were at. But
Yeah,
that-
right.
That grate, if we put a new one in, will have to be attached. All that water goes into the storm drain at the end of court 6.
And I did talk to him about the sod. I said, if there's sod put in, we'll water it ourselves. We're okay. It was thousands, I think.
Well, he's just talking because he's got.
Yeah, and he said, oh, okay, but he said, that's not a real quote.
We're
That was just
we're
my
getting a
guess."
little bit beyond this fence issue, I think.
Yes.
And I think that's what's in front of us right now. And so, what does everybody else think? What was there? Oh.
I think you nailed it on the head. We got a dent in the fender and we're painting the whole car.
Do you want to, I think you're right. Let's walk out and take a look at the car.
I've done that.
It's total.
I was out there
I was
with,
out there with you when
I
we
was out
did
there
it.
with my brother-in-law. Denise was out there that day looking at them.
We were
There's
there
no
together.
question, Charlie, that there is a safety issue with the back fence, with the fences in the back. No question. I hate to spend $50,000 or $40,000 of the community's money to repair good fencing that doesn't need to be repaired.
Actually, you're only paying 5,000 because you have to get it repaired, and that's 27,800.
Well, see, that's the
So
thing.
it's only 5,000 more to do the whole thing.
I just want to remind the board that one reason we're continuing to talk about this was previous board member brought up when we talked about safety, we went through this all again.
Yeah, we all agreed.
About repair in the first place.
We agreed to move on it and then the quote tripled.
Well, we originally had the replacement, and then
Isn't
somebody said, let's talk about getting it repaired. And then that, for some reason, took forever to get them out here, to get the quotes for that. We got it approved, what ended up being February. We could not do it. We were in the middle of season with leagues. And so we contacted Ritzman and said, probably April. Well, it didn't slow down in April. People didn't go home. And we contacted him a month later and said, we're shooting for June 1, and didn't hear from him. Finally, we called him again and he said, well, I'm checking fence quotes. The price has doubled. And at that point, Charlie came to me and said, he said the price has doubled. So I contacted him and said, give us a real quote. And that's when he did that. And then we started
We were
contacting other
attempting to do it
vendors.
during our closing, so we wouldn't have to close another week, and that's when I heard that the quote had doubled.
Yeah.
We need to move.
It just, and that's when we had to go back out and get, because he wasn't gonna sign it in February when it had a 90-day clause on it. And he couldn't do it for that amount of time. So he held off on the signing it. And by the time it came up to that, it was just way fencing equipment. And these quotes here are good for just a few more days because literally every week the prices are going up.
Well, even if the money is there, we know that the quotes aren't that far off in terms of, so we got two companies telling us, here it is, take it or leave it.
And his all-out quote is almost the price as the original all-out quote, but the original all-out quote had bars on a lot of the bottom things. So you're just not getting the bars, but he said that's overkill to do that.
This quote from USA Fence says it's good till August 30th.
Yeah, I called him and he extended.
Okay.
Oh, no, August 30th, no. Yeah, he told me, I said, check your prices. He went through and he said, the prices are still the same. I'll give you 10 days. And I told him I had my meeting on Monday.
This is 13 days.
Well, no, he said he'll wait till the meeting. I called him last week again with all these questions. He said it's still good. He kept calling his companies and we're good on it.
Okay.
I didn't call him until a week later.
Well, I believe we have to do something with this safety issue. It's been brought up as a safety issue again and again and again. I cannot accept $27,800 for a repair that started out at 10.8 or something along those lines. Totally ridiculous. So I think that we have to do some very close scrutiny on anything dealing with Richmond because I don't like the way we were handled. I honestly don't. And I've said that a couple times. Now we got a $32,314 fence and another $9 to $10 to paint the poles. So we're looking at $42,000. Take off about $2,500 or $3,000 for what may not be necessary, as Jill pointed out. Do you want to do? How do people feel about getting this done, and do you want to do a not to exceed amount?
The upcharge, do we have to do the upcharge? The 10,000?
No, that was if we put rails on it.
Right.
He said, if you put rails at the bottom, it's another
No,
10,000.
10,000 is for painting the posts.
That's a different one too, yeah.
Right, so the number we're talking about here is 42,000 approximately.
Right.
Not to exceed
The
42,000.
hardware upcharge was if we put bottom rails.
Right.
And that discussion meant that the new fencing technology.
Yes, I heard that, okay.
It's a little bit, yeah.
I accept what Steve has said. He had, at the last meeting, he said he was going to go out there as the liaison to the facilities committee, take a look. I accept that. I accept that it needs to be done. So with all of that said, for as much as this really pains me, and it does.
Everybody.
You know, this really, really, really bothers me. However, it's got to get done. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept the bid from USA. We include the paint. And I would ask this board to, because now we say it's going to be a little bit less, but let's have a not to exceed of $43,000 and we'll see what the number comes in at.
Okay, and we eliminate the gate.
Yes.
We eliminate the gate
Yeah, that's it.
and we take off that other
Fencing.
$2,500 to $3,000 section.
Not to exceed 43,000.
That would be my motion, not to exceed 43, but those things taken off, the gate taken off, the,
And the issue with the grate and
well, the gate's not a part of this, I'm sorry.
No, the grate.
The
not
grate,
gate.
the grate,
That
that's a
issue,
separate issue.
we're gonna deal with our engineer on.
Right.
And we'll come to it, that's completely separate, we'll come to a head on that in terms of stuff.
Yes.
I second the motion.
All right.
Any other comment?
Any further discussion?
Not directly related to this, but something I want to make you aware of. There is an issue with the light standards themselves.
That's the next item.
Okay, it's the next item? Yes. Okay, all right. We'll deal with that in the next item.
Any further?
Because I want that on the board. I want you to know what's going on with that.
Okay.
All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Reluctant aye.
Yeah, I'm reluctant too, but.
Yeah, what good does it do?
I'll prepare the contract, but can you get them to give you a quote that I can attach that will be inclusive of all this? So it will show the painting of the poles, et
Yeah.
cetera, so that I can call that my exhibit A, staple it to.
I'll have them send me a new one, getting rid of the little, lower fence gate with those poles and just doing the fence and the painting. And then, also, I will have it attached, the guarantee on the fencing, which is 15 years.
Yes.
He had sent those to me. I will send
So
that,
something all-inclusive that I can attach to my
Yeah.
contract.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Denise, I'm gonna ask you to call them today because there was an issue at our meeting about how good this bid was good for. And he did verbally extend it through this meeting.
Okay, so we do have the next item on the agenda, which is item number 4F, which is the consideration of the light pole structure maintenance. This is what Mr. Klein last I believe
Yeah.
was referring to.
I thought the way we left that at our meeting was that when we came to a head with what we were gonna do with the fence, we were gonna ask the fence experts to come in and look at those lights and give us a recommendation, because the bolts and the nuts and the base has got some issues. And there was a lot of discussion about hiring a structural engineer. I'm not so sure we need to do that. I'd rather have the fence expert take a look at it first and give us some advice.
That
as to
sounds
whether we've
good.
got a
Talking about
problem.
replacing the hardware or something like that?
Yeah, I don't think we know what we're talking about. We think we got a problem out there with the base of the big light fixtures. And we want these fence guys to come in and take a look at this and give us some expert advice on it.
Okay, I think we did have, now Rick is not a structural engineer,
Right.
he's
He
a
was
civil
asked.
engineer. But I had asked him that a while ago, and he
Right.
went out there and he checked the integrity of those poles, and he said, yes, there is rust, metal rusts, cement cracks, metal rusts, it happens. And that it was basically cosmetic. And, but let's let somebody else take a
Yeah.
look at it, fine.
I think he.
I called,
go ahead.
Rick said, he felt it was just rust, but when you go out there and you can see some of the bolts are almost pointy instead of with the round flat top where it literally has broken away. They need a wire brush, clean it up. Carlos from Ritzman says he deals with it all the time. He was supposed to come out, I think our meeting was on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I called him that afternoon and he just was unable to make it out. He never made it out and called, or at least he didn't tell me he was here. So I will call him, see if he can come out this week. I'll tell him it's imperative, where he can look at it. And he said he's done it many times where he's replaced some bolts or replaced the whole bottom thing. I don't think the poles themselves need replacement.
Okay, would you ask that same question to USA? Because it seems like, Carlos gives a number and then that number multiplies like rabbits. And,
Yeah, USA Fence doesn't
and I'm
do
a little
lights.
tired of that.
They don't do lights. They do fence. Carlos does tennis everything. He does tennis fence, tennis courts, tennis lines, tennis
All right, we'll get a
lines.
price.
So that's why he said he deals with it and hopefully we can get out. And he'll tell us, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is bad or
think-
good or.
The first issue is, do we have a problem?
Do we have a
Yeah.
problem?
That's
Okay,
what we
fine.
want to know.
All right, so we're gonna find
So
out.
I'll
Yep,
make sure I
yep.
get.
All right. Item G?
The next item on the agenda is item number 4G, which is the consideration of resolution 2021-07, adopting a meeting schedule for fiscal year 2021, 2022. This is behind track number 4 for your review. Are there any questions, comments, or changes to the meeting schedule?
I think it's fine as presented. Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a
I have
motion
one
that we,
question. I have one question. I've seen some public entities, they would have vacation schedules on certain times, like here would be August. where they would have maybe one meeting as opposed to 4 meetings, things like that. These entities would have a meeting every week. Would the board consider that something like that, enacting something like that? We know July and August.
Well, here's a reality. Sorry to cut you off, but here's a reality. The June 13th meeting is going to be approving a budget next year. Okay. And very likely, the August 22nd is going to be the public hearing on the budget. I mean, if we move along the way we have. Is there a consideration like this year, for example, if I recall it correctly, we had one meeting in the month of July. I think we had the early meeting, but then we canceled the second one and we went right into August. So we could consider canceling the July 25th meeting, possibly.
Oh, that would work.
I mean, I'm just based on, what we did this year. We did cancel, but
Keep in mind, you can always.
we can
cancel a
always
meeting.
cancel it.
You can-
Well,
right,
we
can
have
always
canceled a
add
couple
one
second
without
meetings sometimes.
advertising.
We have.
Let me know.
So we can always do that, and
Right.
as long as we have the notifications out, we can always
You
change
can
our
always
mind later on.
cancel, But you can't add a meeting
Right.
without re-advertising.
Right. So it's
All
kind
right.
of saving money to keep the list the way it is.
Okay, I have no problems with it.
So is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Kleinglass, are you in favor of the meeting schedule?
Yes, aye.
Next item on the agenda would be item number 4H, which is the consideration of the addendum to district services to the agreement, which I'm going to ask the board to table because I didn't have the agreement in time for the agenda. It's just a change based on the adopted budget numbers.
Okay.
So I will put this on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
And then we do have item number 4I, which is the review and consideration of the grant of an easement between the Venetian Golf and River Club, POA, and Blue Stream Communications.
I think we've already discussed that. There's
And
no
you can
action
give it
for the
on
board to take.
Right.
So moving forward, we do have item number 4J, which is the consideration of the Aegis insurance proposal for fiscal year 2021-2022, which is behind tab number 6 for your review.
Now, there was only a slight increase on this, right?
Yes. So the property total is split. I think the board would recall, we had these conversations during the budget workshop that we had.
Right.
The River Club portion, typically Aegis provides the amount that Denise includes in her budget. So property total, $31,226. $27,853 are to be allocated to the River Club. The district, meaning the general fund, would be $3,373. So we did come in under in some on the general fund. The general liability is about $221.56 less than what we budgeted. The public officials liability insurance, which we include the crime under this line item as well, $168 less. But overall, I reviewed the entire package. Property schedule's up to date. There's no real big changes unless the board has any questions or changes to the property schedule. We'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So
I'll make a
moved.
motion that we approve the quote.
I heard Ernest first. Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second it then.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Moving forward, we now have item number 5A, which is the consideration of the operations and maintenance expenditures for the month of July 2021. This is behind tab number 7 for your review. The expenditures for the period of July 1st through 31st total to $87,008.64. I did have some questions from Britt. We have been in communication. Landscaping is our favorite topic. So we have spoken about some of the invoices, but other than that, I haven't received any other questions from the board. Are there any questions regarding the O&M?
I'm good.
Yeah. We'll try to get a better handle on them.
There are no questions. We'll be looking for a motion to approve.
I move we accept.
Second. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
We now have the review of the July 2021 financials. This is behind tab number 8. As I mentioned, I also had a discussion with Rick about some of the line items on the landscaping portion. He just wanted to know what some of the installations were, and we did go through that. If you reviewed the statements, we're getting close to going over budget on some of the line items, especially irrigation. Some of the irrigation invoices did clear in July, but we do have a few more coming in the August statement as well.
Okay.
Any questions for me regarding the general fund financials?
I'm good.
I move we accept them.
Well, questions on the River Club? You don't need to accept them, but
Okay.
no.
Okay.
What about River Club? Does anybody have a question on the River Club?
No.
No? Okay.
I'm good.
So we're gonna move forward with the consent items. We do have item number 6A, which we only have one item for consideration today, which is behind tab number 9, and it's the social and dining advisory committee meeting minutes that were held on July 14th, 2021. We'd be looking for a motion to accept if there are no questions.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. We move on to staff reports. Andy, do you have anything to report?
I don't have anything to add, but I'm glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Andy?
I still don't understand, I'm sorry to say, a committee can have a workshop if they don't have a quorum?
Yes, you do not need to have a quorum. You can have a workshop without a quorum. You can't take any formal action.
Okay.
But you can't just have a workshop willy-nilly. I mean, we have it advertised, et cetera. So they're meeting at their normal board time that has been advertised and put in the paper. People expect them to be present. But because you don't have a quorum, you can't take any formal action.
Right.
But rather than just get up and leave, you could stay there and have a workshop type discussion.
And the same would apply to it. You can't have a Zoom meeting unless you have a quorum present.
Correct.
Okay.
You need,
All right. I think I got it.
Whatever your quorum number is.
Has to be in the room.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Have to be physically present in the
The
room.
people who aren't there can vote, but they don't count toward.
Well, they can't, there can be no vote unless the quorum is established in the room.
Right, but then the
Okay.
people who aren't
That's
there
correct.
can vote, even though they don't count toward the quorum.
If the committee,
I've been round and round and round.
yes.
Okay.
Now, did you also learn that the microphone doesn't go through the mask?
I have found that out.
It was a
I
learning
tried to put it
experience.
through where the donut mark was.
Andy, is this an appropriate time then to bring up my issue about quorums? and-
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
But just
So let me,
to be clear, before you go, Mr. Klimas, you just can't say you're gonna have a quorum tomorrow. It has to-
can I
I
have the
mean, if you're gonna have
microphone?
a workshop tomorrow. If you
Right.
don't have a meeting advertised, then it has to be advertised as a
Okay.
workshop.
Yes, okay.
2 minutes. So let me tell you what one of the dilemmas is, and I've gone round and round with Andy on some guidance on this. We're having a lot of difficulty getting a quorum at the Facilities Advisory Committee over the last several months.
As
People
is the landscape committee.
As is the landscape committee, and I suspect maybe some
As
other.
is the fitness committee.
Okay, so at our committee meeting, we had a workshop. And part of the workshop discussion was, could we stipulate that a number of our members on committees be permanent members rather than seasonal members? So we can at least get at establishing a quorum, because we're not able to do very much. And I didn't know if there was any legal ramifications of that, or how we would do something like that.
There is nothing in, for instance, chapter 190 that says you have to be a full-time resident, okay? That being said, it's up to the board, this board, so that when you're composing the committees, you can say, we want it to be 7 people and at least 5 of them have to be permanent Venetian residents rather than seasonal, whatever. That is at the discretion of the board.
Okay.
But it's not up to the committee to make that decision.
It is not.
Okay.
It would be up to the
That's
board.
Previously, the landscape committee had made that decision, but then because
No,
it
it's
wasn't a
up to
board
the
decision,
It's the board decision, because you're the ones that establish the committee, the composition. You say we
Right.
want it to be 7 people, 2 people, 4 people.
so it should
whatever
be in the
might be.
charter for the committee.
Correct.
We need to get that on an agenda and to make that change so
Okay,
it's
so-
official.
Well, let me add a
Because
little
we have
more.
3 members who are snowbirds.
Okay, let me add a little more. At least on the facilities committee, we've had terrific call-in attendance. You know, our seasonal members are very, very good about calling in, but then we don't get a quorum in the room, so we can't do any business.
Right.
So,
Correct.
Wow.
Belinda and Andy, do we need to put this on and make this a formal agenda item, or how do we affect this? And can you give us some guidance about it?
I think
Do you know what
you
we're
do.
talking about?
Yes, I think it should be a formal agenda item, because to the extent, I mean, you could potentially take action on it today, let's just say. But you'd have to open it up to audience comment. You wouldn't have had anybody had noticed that this is an item that you're going to potentially be considering. So my suggestion would be to put it on an agenda and then have a good discussion on it.
Okay, so I would ask that this be included as an agenda
I
item
totally agree.
for our next CDD board meeting. And we can discuss how we would do it, what everybody thinks about it, and go from there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know what I did here, Melinda.
Any other questions for Andy?
Thank you.
Oh, suppose you wanted to address, through changing the charter, a reduction in the board, size of the board. Could you do that?
Size of the board or the committee?
Or the committees?
Sure. Again, this board needs
committee.
to make the decision, because this board sets how big the committee is.
Say if we wanted to reduce the size of the fitness committee, instead of saying 7 members to 5 or something
It'd
like
be
that.
the same thing, that if the committee wanted to do that, let's just say, then they would make that recommendation to the board. You would bring it to the board and say, hey, the committee wants to become 5 instead of 7, and this board would take a vote on it.
Okay,
And the way you would handle that, I assume, I would suggest, would be by attrition.
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So just to be sure, I'll make sure that I put the charters on the agenda as well.
Right.
So if you want to
Mhm.
make direct changes to the charters, I'll bring them with me. We
Okay,
can make the changes as the board is making the decisions at the meeting.
Excellent.
Would
good.
you send them ahead of time so we could look at them?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like
Before the
that.
meeting,
I'd have
so we
it
can
all
at least-
good at that.
anyway.
Thank you.
We're actually accomplishing something
Yeah,
unheard of.
we're not kicking the can.
Denise, do you have anything to report?
I just wanted to update on this air conditioning unit compressor. The compressor came in. He is going to try and install it this week. Chairman Bracco signed the invoice for that, and it was paid. Air 360, who's handling this, is going to speak to the facility committee about this, because he has grave concerns about these units we purchased and what the future is going to be on them. Afterwards, then the liaison or the chairman of the committee can talk to the board about it. And in that, if the board feels they want to hear from the professional, we can always set it up where he comes in and talks to you too afterwards. So the compressor is under warranty. So he put that, the $2,471 for the actual compressor, in a separate invoice, because then that will be reimbursed. Once they get the core, they're going to review it and make sure it's not something we damaged, and then they will reimburse us for that core.
And that's the AC for this building.
That is for this one. We're having trouble with the bar one, but they keep repairing that. It so far is, it just needs repaired. It hasn't been replaced with a compressor on that one. Any questions regarding that situation? So hopefully this week it's done deal. The other thing is I have reached several audio places. I started doing Fort Myers and got some responses. I have 2 of them coming this week, so the next board meeting, I'll have some to present
Okay, great.
regarding the whole audio system and the repair or replacement of the speakers.
I had referred one person to you, audio, said he called twice. Maybe, his name was Dustin, audio sound.
Audio sound, I believe we've spoken with
Okay.
audio sound.
Well,
I'll double check. I'll double check that he's one of them.
His name is Dustin, Dustin. He used to be at Mathis. He's a big company.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Any questions for me? Keith?
Good evening.
Oh,
Ouch.
Where's Keith?
Wait, is this?
Looking good.
No, I don't. Just a couple things real quick. Once, last week I met with a young lady that has a title, Andrea King. She's a supervisor of beaches and water access, Sarasota County Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources. Goodness gracious, put that on a license. And we met down here at the end of.
How big is her business card?
Laurel Road, and talking about the fence that goes across back there between the park and our property. And so she agreed there needs to be something done there. And so they are going to do the survey for us.
Oh, great.
And which was, great. And they will also, if there needs to be some more plantings on their side, put some more plantings in. And as soon as I get the survey done and those type of things back, then we'll have the fence companies come back out, because I know that their quotes are probably, a couple $1,000s more because of the time frame that we've had to get this done. And it's not just there. We walked down in the park and looked at another area that people are coming across. I'm having some more signs made, no trespassing. This is a Venetian property, yada, yada, that are already down there. We're just going to extend them on down just a little bit further. The only other thing I have is, on a personal note, I'll be on vacation the 21st through the 20th. I'll be back on Tuesday, the 28th. I've got to go to a wedding, and I asked if I could get out of it. My wife said, just leave the checkbook. And so I'm going to go. And but I will be back on Tuesday, the 28th. So I won't be here for the 27th meeting. Any of those quotes that I get back for the fencing, any of that, I'll pass on to Belinda, and anything else that needs to be addressed, I'll pass on to Belinda.
Will they pay for the fence?
No. I asked that question.
You did.
And no.
Now, you guys know that's the big, and they were complaining about people coming in,
And it
trespassing
is
on
a little
their
bit of a
property.
concern that, a lot of people
Yeah.
are, I don't have I'm not standing there with a clicker of how many people are actually coming through, but when the water's lower, they are walking around, fishing that pond. We do have a great relationship with the police now, that they are coming out and actually trespassing people. And so, that's going to be a big help in that arena, but I do think.
I think we've all agreed to this all along, that this something needs to be done. Good job.
The fence line comes all the way down Laurel. You can see that fence in the back there.
Yes, sir.
And then you see the signs inside the park.
Right.
And it's pretty easy access.
Right.
From the park.
Well, the gun turn that I asked for didn't get approved, so, but, we'll try to go with the fence.
Good.
Okay. Anything I make?
Thank you.
Enjoy the wedding.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
On my end, I will announce the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors is scheduled to be held on Monday, September 27th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. We will be having a presentation from Pete Pratt at that meeting. So once the Reserve Committee has had a chance to meet with him, he will provide us with a presentation that will be presented at the meeting.
That's regarding the potential bond rate.
Yes.
So just a few things I have, supervisors. The first one, committee meeting schedules. Liaisons for your committees, please make sure that your meeting schedules are provided to Carrie, because we do need to advertise those meetings. I'm not sure if she provided a deadline, but we do need them. As soon as you have them, please provide them. And again, just a reminder, committees providing direction to staff. Please speak with your committees District staff does not take direction from committee members. If there are things that need to be done or accomplished, they need to come from board liaison, direct to staff. If you have specific questions, please let us know. The board vacancy for the current seat that is open. I need a deadline for submittal and when you're considering appointing someone to the board.
I'd like
You said
that,
October, I believe.
I'd like to be able to make that appointment at the October meeting, if that's good with everybody. And I'd
Yes.
like to get letters of intent or whatever we want to call them. What's a good time? The 30th?
So for the first meeting in October, you want this on the agenda?
I'd like, yeah, that October meeting to make an appointment.
Okay. I did receive one candidate resume, and I will circulate that to the board.
Okay.
So we have done a solicitation.
We have not, but I did receive one with.
So do we have to do anything publicly to say, request that a solicitation be made?
I'll work with Keith on an
Keith.
email to be sent out to the
Okay.
community. Any questions for me?
Just a thank you for the great job you did with the budget this year, especially having on big paper. Numbered big paper was fantastic. You know, all the work you did prior to the budget, I think helped us all get through that whole process. And the 3 years that I've been involved in it, this was far and away the best. So thank you for all that hard work.
Thank you. Any other questions for me?
The minutes from the last two board meetings, have they been circulated yet?
I believe they were last week.
Yeah, they went out last
They went out last week?
They did.
Yeah, I saw.
I didn't see them, that's why.
Sometimes they
I saw
come
an
in
email.
promotions.
Yeah, that's what happens, it goes into promotions. Okay, thank you.
Did you have something, Mr. Conrad?
I do not.
Okay. Any other questions for me? Rich, social and dining, you're going to attend their next meeting? You'll be
Yeah,
reacting?
I'm good through the end of the year.
Okay,
I promised them that.
okay. Supervisor requests or comments? Are there any supervisor requests or comments?
I had circulated I had circulated a newsletter from everybody. I've gotten the changes. I will make the remainder of those changes, and I will get it to Keith, if not this afternoon, no later than tomorrow morning. And you're going to hand deliver them this year, right?
Hand deliver, yes.
What a guy.
With a smile.
Well,
Don't go that far.
I'll wear the mask.
I did have one more. Public records request, just as a reminder, public records requests have to be sent to me, as the records custodian for the district. With this whole back and forth with the workshop for pickleball, there are some homeowners that have been sending emails directly to the board. And I have received public records requests for copies of those emails. If we do not have the record, then I don't have to provide it. But if you are responding or providing information to a homeowner, please copy me because there is a likelihood that I will be asked for those records. Any other supervisor requests or comments? It's 1:44. Is there a motion? to
I move
adjourn?
we adjourn.
Motion.